All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the July 22nd, 2026, wow. 2026 planning board meeting. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vanderveen, would you play secretary and perform the roll?
Chair O'Malley.
Here.
Vice Chair Yory excused. Vanderveen here. Mr. Lightgo excused. Mr. Crowley.
Here.
Mr. Boyer excused. Mr. Hurd.
Here.
Mr. James.
Here.
Selectman Guestford.
Here.
Ms. DeBowick.
Here.
You look lonely over there, sir.
Got a lot of space for all this paper up there.
All right, we're going to seat Mr. Hurd for Mr. Boyer, Mr. James for Mr. Lyko. Mr. James, this is your first meeting. You have a question. Feel free to raise your hand and ask it along the way.
All right, thank you.
So we have 2 meeting minutes. We have our June 24th. Everybody had a chance to review that? Any questions, comments? Mr. Crowley?
I see there was a correction made that was looked into, and I'm all for approving the minutes.
So is that a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes.
Mr. Crowley makes a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 6-0. All right, so now we go to our July 8th, 2026 planning board meeting minutes. We had a chance to review. Questions, comments? Mr. Crowley?
I think on line 57 and 60, one is 88 Low Road, the other is 77 Low Road. I thought evens were all on one side and they're both on the same side. I haven't really checked out the addresses, but that kind of stuck out. I don't know if the addresses are correct. Because I think they both be either even or both odd numbered.
Shall I ask Mr. Dima? He's in the
Lines
audience.
57 and 60.
Mr. Dima, I have a question for you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, please go ahead.
You were talking about the Lowell and Birch property, and it states here he would like to be able to offer the same thing to 77 Lowell Road as were offered to 88 Lowell Road. Is those the two correct addresses?
Yes, 77 and 80. 76. I'm sorry, I want to say it's 76 and 88.
Both even or both odd?
1 second. Because we don't want to switch screens over there, so 1 second.
Part of our
I
technical
have it on the
difficulty.
GIS, 1 second. So Susie's Diner property, it's 76 Low Road. And the one adjacent to it on the other side of the brook, it's 88. So it should be 76 and 88 Low Road, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Was that the only correction, Mr. Curry?
170. I know Mr. Boyer is excellent, but he line 70 said Mr. Boyer moved to appoint Todd Boyer.
That is an amazing man, ain't it?
Yep, like I say, he's an excellent planning board member, but that one is a little
I
beyond.
believe it was Mr. Lyko.
I think it was Mr. Lyko too.
I believe it was Mr. Lyko who made the motion.
We'd have to rewrite our rules of procedure if we don't do
Yeah.
something about this.
Because I remember Mr. Lyko made the motion, and then I informed Mr. James that apparently his interview was over. So, any others?
So that's it.
Anyone else? changes or corrections?
This is July 8th, correct?
July 8th.
I'll be abstaining.
So, Mr. Crowley, are you making a motion to accept the minutes
I
as amended?
make a motion to accept them as amended. Is that the right way to say
Yeah,
it?
perfectly done.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Motion carries 5-0 to 1, with Selectman Gesford abstaining. All right. Next, we're going to move to correspondence. Mr. Deem has a bond release request. Has everybody had a chance to review it? Mr. Crowley?
I looked over and I moved to approve the release of $557,098.03 bond relative to water and sewer construction at Heritage Landing, 112 to 114 Greeley Street, as presented in a memorandum from the town engineer Elvis Dehima and to the town planner Brooke Duweck.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 6-0.
Again, I apologize on names. Not my strong point.
All right, so now we have a Granite Subaru expansion bond establishment for landscape improvements. Mr. Vanderbeek.
I wish Mr. Dean was here because I have a question.
Mr. Deeman, would you be willing to speak to this?
Please go ahead.
Wasn't next to Irving, Granite State Subaru has a big parking area.
That is correct.
Wasn't that supposed to be paved?
That is supposed to be paved, it's supposed to have drainage, it's supposed to have a lot of landscaping features. Unfortunately, I've not had a chance to get going on the projects. This has come up numerous times. We've threatened them with zoning violation as well. They're aware of it, and we've been told they're gonna try to start construction this year. Obviously, the main thing is, why do any of the work if you can sit there and do the parking without any of the improvements that already got approved by the site, by the planning board? So that's been the catch-22. But taking consideration, we've been having some staff changes. We are aware of it. They're aware of it. We're trying to do this in a nice way, but if not, then we'll have to do it the Hudson way. You know what I mean?
Thank you very much.
That's how it goes. Thank you.
Do it easy, you do it hard.
Other questions? Mr. Crowley?
So this covers all the improvements that the planning board requested when we approved that? It says landscaping improvements, but paving of the parking lot, and I think there was some drainage associated with.
Yeah, I believe the landscape bond is just for the landscaping.
This is for the landscape.
This landscape bond is just for the landscaping. It doesn't cover the parking lot, the drainage, or any of that stuff. I don't believe we normally have them bond their own parking lots and drainage system, and Mr. Deemer has graciously stepped forward to answer this question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it's a good point, Mr. Crowley. In this case, the only thing we would feature is the landscaping, and that's because there's a lot of features alongside of Lowell Road. There was a lot of effort put by the planning board at the time of the reviewing of the site plan. So those are, to us, the main things that need to be bonded. There's no water, there's no sewer there. The parking, if they don't do the parking, they're simply not going to get a sign off on the as-built. So we felt that, in line with other things that we've done in the past, that landscaping will be the only feature we'd like to enforce here, and that's through bonding. So if they do not do the landscaping features, we'll hold the money. But that's the only thing. Parking, curbing, and all that, that's a requirement by the planning board, but we don't typically bond that because it's private at the end of the day. So it's a landscaping, but something that's going to impact folks driving in and out of there.
So if I may,
Mr. Crowley?
since we didn't do any substantial completion. They have 5 years to do whatever they're gonna do.
They had the approval, I want to say, about 5 years ago or 4 years ago.
Granted them an extension.
Yes, so it would be 5 years total or 6 years, because I forget, it was like 3+2 or 3+3, I forget, but they're close to the end. And the reason they're having the bond request tonight is because they need to record the plans. And to record the plans, they need to basically provide some kind of bond for the items that we require them to, in this case, only the landscaping features. Once you approve this tonight, then they can move forward. The next hope is they come in, they do a construction, a mandatory pre-construction meeting with us, tell us what the contract is, we walk through the, all the requirements. Everyone gets introduced to everybody, including the contractor, and off we go. Remove the vehicles, pave, do the improvements, put the landscaping in, and call it a day. If the work is done and they cannot do the landscaping, because let's just say it's in November, December, we'll hold on the bond until they do the work next year, and then we'll release the bond. Or I should say, the planning board releases the bond once the work is to our satisfaction, staff.
So this is the best solution to a bad situation, is that what?
And I wouldn't say a bad situation, but this is something, we have to be reasonable to what we request for bonds. If it was a private road in there, public road in there, or the private road, but with utilities that impacts us, those are the things we typically bond. Things that impacts us and folks that drive by it, or things of that sort. So we have to be reasonable. We felt like this was a reasonable approach.
Okay. Oh, it looks like a lot of thought put into it.
Mm-hmm. We typically do.
Oh, that's always good to know.
We're good?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on the bond request?
Yeah,
No.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Vanderveen,
I move to approve a bond in the amount of $52,200 relative to landscape improvements associated with the Granite Subaru expansion at 6 Executive Drive, map 210, lot 001-000, as requested in the memorandum by Brooke DeBoek, town planner, dated July 15th, 2026, together with the Town of Hudson Road Guarantee Estimate Form.
do we have a second? Seconded by Mr. Crowley. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries 6-0. All right. I think that's the longest we've taken on the bond. Old business, the Meadows, mixed-use developments, CP number 2-26 and CUP 02-26. Introduce yourself and your affiliation with the plan would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. Good morning or evening. Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is James Hayden. I work for Verdantis here representing Meadows Property LLC for the project The Meadows at 207 Central Street. I'm just going to give a quick overview of the project. I know this has been before the planning board before, but since the last time it was here, we've made some changes to the site layout and the grading, and I think it's worth just going over those changes and then just speaking to the benefits that those changes have had to the site as a whole. The area in Building A is largely stayed the same as from where you all have seen it before, with the exception of the drainage. We made changes to the drainage on the site as a whole, and I'll circle back to that in a minute. Building B was extended a little bit to the east, and Building D was made smaller, running north to south, and this was done in an effort to make the buildings similar and then also give them an equal unit distribution. In addition to this, we also reduced the amount of parking spaces. Before, there was at least 2 parking spaces per unit, but the state passed a law last year that caps parking spaces for residential units to 1, with the option for town municipalities to increase that to 1.5 parking spaces, and that's the most that a town can request based on the new state laws. And this project proposes 1.7 parking spaces. So By doing that, we have reduced the amount of impervious on site by about 30,000 square feet. The other added benefit to that is our stormwater ponds got smaller because now you have less contributing impervious area. And as a result of that, the overall buffer impacts have been reduced to about 40,000 square feet. So these changes not only help reduce the infrastructure, but it also helps limit the impacts to the wetland buffers. The Conservation Commission has seen these new plans. They did a site walk, I believe, on Monday, and they have voiced their, approval, for lack of a better word, of the project and thought that the changes were reasonable, and they were on board with what we were doing. In the previous iteration, we had shown wet ponds and bioretention basins for stormwater. We have changed that to mostly feature gravel wetlands. The added benefit to using gravel wetlands is that they have an increased treatment for nitrogen and phosphorus, which is beneficial in areas like these where you have closer proximity to wetlands. These gravel wetlands have a saturated stone layer that has extended treatment time for stormwater, and it helps remove those pollutants in a better fashion than bioretention basins. And they also allow for a smaller footprint, thus decreasing the buffer impacts more. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have on the project as a whole. I know we are asking for some waivers, and I'm happy to go through those now, or I can answer questions about the site layout or anything in particular that comes to mind.
Why don't we do the waivers? That way we don't get lost.
Okay.
We get into a discussion and those don't get written into the record.
Okay. So I'll start with the first waiver that we're asking for, which is the 35-foot landscape buffer along the right-of-way. The existing condition, this is in reference to Building A. In the existing condition, there is pavement that from Central Street all the way down to the wetland line, the whole thing is paved. This gray area is the paved area and adjacent to where Building A is going to go. So in the existing condition, there's no vegetative buffer at all. It's just pavement all the way through. In the proposed condition, there is going to be about an 8 to 12 foot vegetated strip along the north end, or I guess the northwesterly end of the pavement between the parking lot and Central Street. So it is less than the 35, but it is more than existing. And if we were to be held to that 35-foot setback, it would just push the pad site further to the south, which would then increase buffer disturbance and overall project disturbance. And we felt that the shown landscape buffer or vegetative buffer between the parking lot and Central Street is an improvement to the existing condition that's there now.
Mr. Chairman, one thing I'd like to add, Dylan Dumont, 185R Central Street for the applicant. In addition to that, another, I think, added benefit, if this waiver were to be allowed, is there'll be a reduction of about 32,000 square feet of impervious area as shown on the existing conditions plan. The pavement that's there actually goes up to the wetland and quite frankly into it. We went out there and on the site walk, Conservation Commission viewed it as well, but basically they paved right up through the wetland delineation that's there. As you've seen on the existing conditions, it's kind of jagged, and obviously that was us being conservative, but one could figure that most likely that pavement is a straight line, like any other parking lot, most likely with the furthest distance behind the existing foundation for the old meadows. So I just want to add, along with this waiver, yes, we're asking for a reduction in green space. However, there will be a massive transformation into the impervious area that's there to restore the natural buffer that is intended over there.
Got another one?
What's up?
Got another one?
Yeah, you want me to keep going?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. That's the first waiver. The second waiver is for the post-development volumetric increase in runoff. So the drainage design that we have presented to the board and to third-party review has been designed for the AOT standards. And DES sets their rules to meet the 2-year volume and then the 2, 10, and 50-year peak rate. The 10, 25, and 50-year volumes are not things that DES requires applicants to meet pre to post flow. And there are 2 reasons for that. The first being the peak rate is the more important number when it comes to drainage and runoff, because that is how quickly the runoff is going to get to the analysis point. So in DES's viewpoint is if you slow down that peak rate, that is going to do more benefit downstream than the volume necessarily would. The other side of that is the DES regulates the water quality volume, which is the volume that is generated from what is called the first flush. And that's generally about an inch of runoff, because that's what carries all your pollutants from the parking lot, the roadway, grassed areas. That first inch of rain collects all of that and then brings it to these treatment systems. So although we don't meet the storm volume, we have enough water quality volume that treats the pollutants that is generated from the subcatchment areas. The other side of the volumetric pre to post is the sheer volume the ponds would have to be in order to meet that. Generally speaking, if you're talking about the 50-year storm, your pond sizes are going to be 2 to 3 times bigger than if you didn't have to meet that requirement, because you have to hold back that volume retention, which increases your project disturbance, potential wetland buffer impacts. It creates more disturbance, and in the state's eyes, the benefit of meeting that volume requirement is not exceeding project disturbance. So they view those higher volumes as not as important as the 2-year, the peak rate, or the water quality volume. The other side of it, this project is going to discharge its runoff to a large wetland system. And we did a calculation to determine how much the water level would rise in the wetland at the 50-year based on our volumetric increase. And that increase in the water level in the wetland would be 0.07 inches. So it is a minuscule number that wouldn't affect the wetland system as a whole, and it wouldn't be detriment to the existing drainage. And in sites like these where you have high seasonal high water tables and poor soils, there is no infiltration capabilities, and typically the only way you meet volume requirements is through soil infiltration, because that water is discharged, is not going to the final analysis point, it's being sent back into the ground and essentially taken out of the analysis. Where this site features shallow seasonal high water tables and mostly sea soils, there isn't a possibility to do infiltration, which means that it makes the volumetric requirement much harder to meet. And then the third waiver is for parking. I kind of touched upon this at the beginning. The state has passed law, I think September last year, limiting the number of spaces to 1 per residential unit, with the option to go up to 1.5, and we show 1.7 spaces. So that's really the main reason for the waiver. The secondary, also important piece of the waiver is that the less impervious area you have, the less buffer impacts, the less drainage, less grading. So it falls in line with what the state requires, but that also limits unnecessary impervious area around the site and reduces all those impacts that much more.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, one thing I want to add into that is this was done through feedback. So obviously Hudson's ordinance is 2 spaces per residential. The state's 1.5. This was kind of a cross your T's, dot your I's thing. However, we did initially start out with 2 spaces per unit. Through site walk with this board, as well as 2 through conservation and numerous meetings, the feedback we got was to tighten things up. And obviously one way to do that is to eliminate impervious area. I did not feel comfortable going down to 1.5. However, this was a middle of the road number, 1.7 per unit, that allowed us to pull a majority, if not almost all of it, out of the buffer and find that happy balance to what conservation this board was asking for. It does not meet, obviously, the town ordinance, but it exceeds the state. So I just thought that was worthwhile. That was an effort of trying to balance, obviously, the commission, this board, and our needs as well. So.
Does that conclude the presentation for this evening?
So that concludes the waivers. There are a couple of things that I would like to add and point out. And basically on that same note, there has been a great effort over the past 7 months of planning, staff review, third-party review, our engineers. As you know, before that, we came in front of this board 2 to 3 years ago with a conceptual review, which I think is important to note. We took a lot of feedback over the past 3 years. So this is not a project that obviously has come and has been pushed through. If anything, it's been a tremendous effort on our end as well as staff, this board and commission, and the third-party review to get it to where it is. In speaking with the third-party review, we understand that there are some minor outstanding comments that are administrative in nature and in detail, and we believe that it can be handled in that way. We truly believe that the plan that is in front of you tonight satisfies all of the concerns that we were made aware of. I know, and I just want to put on for the record, Mr. Crowley had given a list of comments, and the joke at that time was that, well, nobody answers those comments. Well, emailed circulated copy as well as a fully printed copy went out to all the members, and we took that seriously. So all the comments from individual members of the board and the commission were addressed. We did receive a favorable recommendation along with 19 stipulations from the Conservation Commission on Monday that I'm hoping that you guys have a copy of. If not, I have one here with me. And if we would get into talks about that, I would like to have some conversation about some of those stipulations as information that has come to light to me since then. But I think overall, this is a significant increase. We have all of the information that we believe necessary to move this thing along to a successful project that Hudson can be happy with. So,
Okay. All right, so what we're going to do at 7:30, so I'm going to open this up for public input. Does anybody in the public wish to speak on this matter? On up to the lectern.
Deborah Putnam, 59 Rangers Drive. I'm presenting a statement to bring key concerns to the forefront and to have this information in the formal minutes. This statement has been updated since submitted as the documents became available in the packets for tonight's meeting.
So I'm going to stop for just one. For planning board members, there was originally in the packet a written statement from Ms. Putnam. In the handouts, there is an updated one, just for
And
clarification.
I will provide Brooke with my copy before I depart, and can also email it to you.
Perfect.
Okay. I have an over 50-plus year friendship with a PhD in geology, registered professional geologist with 42 years of experience in an environmental field, 26 of which as a private sector consultant, and the last 16 of which was as the state geologist of Georgia. It is clear that the builder has made the point that they will be converting land that is not producing income for the town into land that is generating income in the form of property taxes. In the field of environmental law, converting polluted land into income producing is called creating a brown field. The developer contractor should be commended for taking on the serious cost and time to brown field the site. With the project being presented, we are talking about long-recognized wetlands. The larger concerns should be hydrostatic pressures due to the wetlands and the existence of asbestos fill. An obvious concern would be the long-term exposure of the residents of the apartment buildings to asbestos contamination and the lawsuits that the town may face, as Hudson is already identified as a hot spot for asbestos by the state of New Hampshire. Upon review of the Hurley Environment and Land Planning LLC report, the site-specific soil survey report, it is clear the plans for the site have been assessed by a New Hampshire licensed professional geologist or engineer. It is vital that the developer contractor follow all rules associated with the New Hampshire environmental statutes and regulations, particularly in regards to asbestos. While asbestos is not water soluble, it must be managed during building and future occupancy of the apartments such that there is at least 2 feet of clean fill on all exposed land, or if the asbestos is deeper than 2 feet, that it be properly isolated. For example, if asbestos is in the upper 2 feet of the surface, it can be removed. If it is deeper than 2 feet, it must be isolated. Any digging deeper than 2 feet that contains asbestos must be removed and mitigation measures put in place. It would be useful to do a series of soil borings and chemical analysis of the soil samples to determine the horizontal and vertical extents of the asbestos contamination. Taking these steps will result in important information regarding the extent of the asbestos, which could be extremely important should future court cases arise. In documents previously submitted in a earlier packet, page 36, attachment D, it was noted on item number 19, it is unclear how an oil spill or gas spill can be contained within the paved parking area without curbing or catch basin, taking into consideration the entire project is surrounded by wetlands. In part, additional information was included in the packets submitted tonight. Curbing and swales are shown on the plan around the parking areas, which will divert surface runoff towards the proposed forebays. The forebays are designed to be lined and can be used to capture and contain oil spills in addition to the pre-treatment of stormwater. In summary, no untreated stormwater will discharge into the wetlands. 2 concerns. We live in New England. Cracks exist and are enlarged every freeze and thaw cycle throughout the winter. The presumed asphalt curbing and swales should be lined with impermeable layer, most likely heavy plastic, as eventually the curbs and swales will no longer be functioning as required. Second concern, we already know any basin forebays will be no deeper than 4 feet with an impermeable layer, but the impermeable liner needs to be double layers, just like the requirements on oil tankers, double hulls. Then the construction needs to be able to handle the higher hydrostatic pressure that will most definitely occur during heavy rains and hurricanes. The documents submitted with the packets this evening refer consistently to 50-year floods. We all know that Hudson and other areas of New Hampshire have experienced at least 2 100-year floods in the last 10 years. So now we have to look at the importance of proper designs and materials. We come back immediately to a preceding item, number 18. The plans don't indicate where catch basins are proposed, if any. No catch basins are proposed due to the shallow groundwater table. The stormwater plan is largely based on surface sheet flow. Again, the final stormwater design will be provided. Will the stormwater design address a probable overflow of the proposed forebays? The overflow for any forebay designed to capture and contain oil spills and pre-treat the stormwater, even if in gravel areas into the wetlands, most likely will pollute the surrounding wetlands, wildlife areas, and Benson Park. I know that certain components were brought up during this evening about phosphates, etc. Those are associated most likely with fertilizers for grass. I'm talking about more of oil leakage from cars, trucks coming in and out of this development and laying on that asphalt, and then eventually with a strong rainstorm getting into the wetlands. So, wildlife areas, Benson Park. In summation, it is my humble opinion that while the goals are to turn the land into a brownfield, generating tax income for the town, if the matters I have presented are not addressed, should the planning board approve? If so, at what price to the environment, future occupants, and especially Benson Park? Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll return this back to the board at 7:40 p.m. All right, board members, I have a few questions that if the board would allow me, actually.
Could we have a chance to address some of those?
Oh, sure.
Would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll speak to the oil spill one because I think that's the more straightforward of the two. So with regards to the oil spills, using forebays as a method of pretreatment not only for stormwater but also for potential of oil spills is common practice because they are lined. There is no means or methods for infiltration through the forebays. They're designed to contain runoff that goes into them and filter out sediments, debris, oil, things like that. I will say that as part of this design, because it is going to DES, DES requires yearly inspection and maintenance reports on all stormwater systems. So these aren't going to be set it and forget it. These will at least be biannually inspected to include the forebays. And if oil spills or debris or sediment buildup is witnessed in these forebays, the owner is made known. They have to go out, repair it, and then let DES know that the maintenance has occurred. During construction, there are also a thing called a SWIP, which is the Stormwater Prevention Pollution Plan, and that is a weekly inspection that gets done throughout the construction process to make sure that the stormwater is functioning as designed and that the site as a whole isn't releasing any sediments, debris, oil, or anything like that into areas that are not proposed to be disturbed. So these systems are designed for this particular practice, but they're also intended to be maintained and inspected with set frequencies by the state. So if something does happen, it is going to get caught, and it's not just going to sit there indefinitely. These things are designed for this purpose, and they're also meant to be inspected, which they will be because the state requires it. As far as the asbestos fill concerns go, it's my understanding that that is something that I know DES is going to have comments on, and regulations and stipulations for how that is to be maintained and dealt with in the field. And what those stipulations are, we're not, I think, going to be 100% familiar with until we submit this to the plan, or submit the plan to DES. But because it is going to be reviewed at the state, they will have recommendations and requirements for the handling of asbestos material. And we will have to include those notes on the plan, provide the town with what those requirements are, and then follow through with those requirements during construction. So the asbestos material will be handled in a manner that DES is ultimately going to approve as part of this process.
So to follow up on that as well, because I know it was noted, obviously, things I think are worth mentioning as far as the site being redeveloped. The asbestos cap obviously is known. It was in communication with the state, and actually this was a preferred development through the state. And one of the justifications for that is quite frankly the impervious area that's going over top of it. The way that that asbestos is capped now, Ms. Putnam is correct that there's fill over top of that. What they would prefer to see is pavement and concrete. So upon their review, or their initial review, and obviously, as James had stated, they're going to be getting deeper into this, but they were in favor of that and in favor of seeing something happen over there. One other thing I would like to point out about the development, she mentioned taxable income to the town, which is a benefit. However, Hudson needs housing. The master plan that this board finished up, the National Regional Planning Commission that this board works with, and the state has all shown, or has cited, that we need more affordable, or what I would call the missing middle form of housing. It is not low income, it is not luxury, it's smack dab in the middle, starter homes where someone can go and hopefully raise a family, save up some money, and go purchase a home. That is the goal and the intent of this development by providing this type of housing. There is a cost to doing that, and there is some work that'll have to be gone around, but DES has an action plan if any of those materials are hit. I will tell you that we dug 17 test pits out there, and we hit the water table before we hit anything else. So that we won't be going any further than that, obviously. If anything, that was right about at the frost line. We're going to be coming up a little bit on top of that. So for what it's worth, obviously, we didn't go and scrape everything off, but we did have to go out and dig test pits to show how these gravel wetlands and detention basins were going to operate, and we were able to find that high water table without having any problem there. So I hope that addresses some of her concerns as to where that level is. And obviously, for most people, frost line is roughly about 48 inches, give or take, depending on where you're at. So that is a significant amount of fill before we had any problem. The other part that I want to touch on, he touched on the oil and the maintenance program, which I think is a huge thing. A lot of people think that you put a detention basin in and you don't do anything after that. On developments like these, not only will the tenants make the owner well aware, obviously people that drive by will and have the opportunity to make the state and the owner aware, but the state itself has strict requirements to when and how that is taken care of, and we have to file those reports, and that obviously during the construction, those are even heightened to a weekly review, and that binder is offered, I believe, to the town and the state for both of their review if necessary. The stormwater design is finalized. I had heard that it's not. Obviously, we have not finished through AOT, and we can't really finalize that process until we get through here. So there may be some additional comments from them that we'll have to work through, but I think that's typical. Obviously, with a conditional approval from this board, that's a normal process. But it's my understanding that the third-party review has given their favorable review of that, as well as I will reiterate, Conservation Commission gave their favorable review of the stormwater management and the drainage design that was put forward. So I do appreciate Ms. Putnam's comments, and I hope that we were able to address some of those for her tonight.
And one more thing too, as far as the inspection frequency goes, it's a minimum of once a week. If there is more than, I think it's a quarter inch or half an inch of rain within a 24-hour period, we have 24 hours to go out and inspect the site. So it's not, if it rains on Saturday, we don't go out there until the following Monday. If it rains on Saturday, we're out there on Monday looking at it. So we're boots on the ground right after it rains to see how these systems are operating.
Anybody have any comments on that? So I guess we'll bring it back to the board. I do have some questions on Building A. I'm trying to grasp the concept of how that is supposed to work. First thing, you've got it listed as retail. So that's it, it's retail.
So for that, what I can speak to, and I'm sure James can as well, we have it listed in there so for traffic analysis portion, it takes into consideration retail and restaurant. The use code that is utilized is what's considered to be a strip plaza, which is multiple uses, and it takes the more conservative approach of what those heavier uses are going to be, and then it funnels that into the program, as well as the food trucks. Now, obviously, the food trucks has a higher trip generation, and that's also figured into there as well. So for what the use affects, obviously, the big ones is traffic and parking. And our parking calculations are based off of, and I will have James clarify this for me, but 3 retail spaces and one drive-through or restaurant-style block. The building, when you look at the architecturals, are cut up into 4 different units.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that triggered my question, is the parking calculation is based on just professional services, which is the higher. It's $350 per square foot. Retail brings it down to 200, and then any type of restaurant brings it down to 100 in our parking calculation. So I was trying to figure it out because it wasn't distinguished in there. Mm-hmm. It actually doesn't even reference one. It just comes up with commercial. Give me glasses. Commercial space. Is that what it is? Yeah, commercial space, which we don't have a parking calculation for. So I was just trying to figure out where we came up with the 350, which would be the least intrusive, I guess.
That one I will turn it over to James.
Yep, give me 1 sec. I'm just going to open up another document. Since these plans have been submitted to the board, we have been working through the Fuss and O'Neill comments and town staff comments. And one of those changes we made has been to the parking calculation and how it's defined.
Let's get over here.
If you don't. But yes, to your point, Chair, the parking calculation has been, it will be revised and shown on the updated plan that there is a difference between the residential parking and the restaurant use parking, and that the 36 spaces shown factors that in. So I know the plan that we submitted to the board counted it as general commercial, but as part of the revision process, we broke that out to show the difference because there's different parking metrics for the different types of uses.
Yeah, just because you got 6,600 square feet based on 300, so you're showing 22 parking spaces. Well, now if you're going to possibly allocate 1,500, or we allocated 1,500 to a restaurant, that's 15 spaces where you only had 5 before. There's a great potential in that parking calculation.
Understood, yeah.
And I would think on this plan set, because if this plan set, in my opinion, was approved today, if you went to apply to put a restaurant in there, because it's listed as retail, I don't think they're gonna send you back here for an amended site plan.
I would agree.
Because now we're approving retail and you're asking for basically a change of use to a different.
Do you have the calculations that we went over earlier, James?
Yeah, I do, yep. So we have it broken down, and you can kind of see up here on the spreadsheet, the 4 units, the area internal, and then the number of parking spaces that are associated with each use. So in this calculation, for example, we have the area of the unit divided by 200 square feet, which yields 7 spaces. So that's the typical retail use. And then down in R1, it is square foot of the unit divided by 100 square feet to get you your restaurant type use parking. And we have transposed this table on the revised plans so that the revised plans are going to show unit R1 retail use X amount of square feet divided by 200 equals X amount of spaces. R2, same thing, all the way down to R4 to show succinctly and clearly on the final plans that here are the units, here are their uses, and here's the parking for each one.
And to speak further towards that, because we understood and we did catch that, so I appreciate the question. I think labeling it is the better way to go, and I would agree. I think that there would be discrepancy in staff when moving forward with a building permit of something like that. Obviously, typically on a site plan, you have the uses. While we were going through this, we were struggling with what is the use going to be, who's going to take it. Obviously, I'm sure as this board's well aware, finding a tenant that's willing to give you an answer on something that's up in the sky is very difficult. So, but also noting the balance with this board, what we're willing to do, quite frankly, is try to minimize what that possibly would be. So we came in here asking for the possibility of 2 drive-throughs with retail, not knowing where those were going to go. What we'd like to offer as a sign of good faith, and if this was to change, obviously we would come back for either a site plan or a minor site plan, is to eliminate one of those drive-throughs, reduce it down to one that would be on the eastern side of the building, and then the other spaces would be retail, which would match the calculations that James had put out here today. And the parking obviously would then show as adequate for what is out there, and that would lock us into exactly what we're trying to do over there. I think that it's a reasonable compromise that we can live with, that I'm hoping the board can as well. And the other token to that I see a benefit, quite frankly, is by doing that, the traffic flowing through the site, I think, will operate better, especially by putting that drive-through on the right side now and locking that in. It gives more room for queuing without having any possibility of backing up and causing safety concerns in front of the site. And also, one of the questions that was brought up way back when was the residential units, how they're going to get into that building and how they're going to be able to get in there safely. Well, in looking at that, the best way to do it, quite frankly, is to have the designated space more on the eastern side, and having that drive-through on that eastern side forces those vehicles to stop, as well as obviously proper signage and a crosswalk for anybody who would happen to be coming into their residential or those other retail units accessing across there. So I think we achieve multiple things by doing that, and I'm hoping that that's a favorable update to this board that, in my opinion, can be shown obviously on a final plan set, hopefully for signature.
And then the other question I was going to have, because I'm just going to harp on building A right now,
Yep, that's fair.
is the food truck. So that generated, if I remember correctly in the traffic study, that seemed to generate pretty much the highest volume on the
It is,
site.
yeah, highest turnover.
So how did you because we don't have a criteria, so what was your kind of thought process on how that was going to work in the parking lot?
Well, I can explain from my operational. I'll have James from the engineering standpoint. What we were figuring over there was that those types of vehicles are going to be entering and exiting the site at a higher rate than what would be for a retail or even the residential. And typically, when you're dealing with a strip plaza like that, that has those high rate of entry and exits, you're not dealing with a lot of backlog. Whereas if you had somebody that was coming for appointments or staying there for a significantly long period of time, you have a lot of overlap there, which then causes backup with the parking. So from an operational standpoint, I don't see those utilizing a lot of parking spaces. I see people coming and going, hence the higher trip generation. I don't know if James wants to add anything to that. We are figuring to try to do something new. We understand that this isn't something that is in Hudson. It's something that you would see, quite frankly, that I've seen it out on the West Coast and up in Maine, in a couple different areas, and it seems to operate pretty well. They have some similar things like this in the Tuscan Village in Salem. That seems to operate pretty well. People like it. They're able to eat outside. And the other token of that is I don't see that operating through winter months where the site is going to be more confined due to snow. I see that operating primarily through the a seasonal basis, whether it be spring and summer and maybe early fall.
The only thing I'll add to that is I think the food truck use and the drive-through use benefit each other, because the drive-through use is going to pull customers through the drive-through and not necessarily have them park to go inside and get a meal. So those spaces that would be allotted to the call it restaurant use would then be open to people using the food truck use. So I think having those two next to each other benefits that offset in parking.
And one final token that me and James did speak about, and I know I've seen this happen in the past, that we'd be amenable to is if parking did become an issue, we could create an additional 6 spaces. Now, I will say there's a trade-off there, obviously, with everybody knows that the buffer's there. So if that was something that this board wanted to stipulate that there was an issue there in the future that we would have to add those spaces, we would be fine with doing that. I think that would be a reasonable that would be a reasonable compromise as long as everybody is aware there's only really east to go with those, which would push into that side buffer a little bit. And James could speak to that a little bit as well. So we do have some options there.
Yeah, if parking was a concern, this array that runs down Central Street could be extended to fill more spots in this area. But to Dylan's point, that's an increase in impervious, and you're likely making the gravel wetland a smidge bigger to offset that increase in impervious area. But there is room to add more spaces if it's deemed necessary or if it becomes a concern. Our thought was to limit the amount of impervious as much as possible and use the food court and drive-through use as kind of mutually beneficial with regards to parking.
So we keep saying drive-through. I'm pretty sure you have the ability to stack 12 cars, but typically we would require you to show us a plan where you can stack those 12 cars. But my other thing I was looking at was, it doesn't appear to be a sidewalk on the back of that. So now I've got all those emergency egress doors. Somebody coming out to empty the dumpster or something are going to be actually entering into that travel lane. So I don't know if you guys have thought of that, how you would remedy that. Maybe a sidewalk there and then kind of cut you back into, or I think that's a concern that you guys probably would want to look at.
Well, I think that's a good point. I do think that can be accomplished. I would lean on James for the measurements. I'm sure we could get an answer relatively simple on that. A 4-foot sidewalk along the back edge there, I think, could benefit everybody. Obviously, it would have to dive into each corner of the building there. You're not just going to bring it across the through lanes there, but I don't see why that can't happen. The only thing I will note to that point is, if that is something that this board would like, is it would push that through lane down or south just a bit. So the biggest thing with a lot of those were, at least from what I took away from conservation, was to try to tighten it up as much as possible, which is where a lot of those restraints came, which is where some of these issues that we realized would be conversations here at the planning board, kind of came from. So we were trying to balance the two of them to see if we could make, everybody happy.
So just to stick with building A, I know we don't approve these conceptuals you got, but on AC 103 for building A, you have 2 floor plans. One has the tenants coming from the front, one has them dumping into a drive-through lane.
The alternate floor plan is a misstep that was considered months back and should not be in your packet. And that is not what we are proposing.
I've manipulated this conversation for a while. Other board members? I need some water, so I was giving you an opportunity,
Okay,
Mr. Crowley.
gee, I was willing to listen quite a bit. I guess I have to start with, I'm on information overload to start with. We got a lot of stuff put out here tonight. I tried to look over a lot of things, but I can't get my hands around everything. But I guess first thing I gotta say is in the current packet, attachment D, I see responses to the town engineer cup, Hudson O'Neill, peer review, and staff reviews. And my ego is kind of hurt that I didn't see any responses to Crowley. 8 or 9 pages. One thing it was said, okay, we revised the plans, look at those, look at everything else, and a lot of Crowley questions are answered. But at the tail end of that, already we have public input with concern about asbestos. I would hoped at that time I proposed to put out a couple of stipulations that I really wanted the planning board to look at. I wanted the applicant to comment on whether they felt they were acceptable or whatever. I know the state controls pretty much everything, but I really want the town to be informed, and at certain points in time that are logical. I want the information to be available for the public. Quite honestly, I find if you're trying to find something at the state, it's a bit of a black box for me. Where to look, how to find it, whatever. If everything is submitted to the town, there's various things that are required by the state for asbestos and that. If it's shown here, all she got to do is go down to the town hall or whatever and request information. But anyway, I know when I come into this meeting, it appeared that we didn't have anything for the Conservation Commission. I haven't read it all yet. So we aren't even going to be approving anything tonight anyway, because we wouldn't even have it written up. So if possible, I would like, I sent that out in March. I really would like some written responses to it, and that possible. Like, they say, hey, Mr. Crowley, we answered this and this memo.
Mr. Crowley, Mr. Newman, I believe, has a response for you.
Okay.
So I'll touch on the first one about your comments. So, and I mentioned it before, I didn't take those lightly. You did get an email, or at least my understanding was it was emailed to you. It was emailed to town staff with a revised copy. So your initial one went out before a lot of these major revisions went, and then we revised all of those answers again to reflect this most updated plan set that was emailed. You also have a printed copy of all of your questions and our answers on your desk here. I just wanted to make sure that you did get them and that there wasn't lost in email communication. Okay. So we did do that. To the point about asbestos, I will say, and I guess I'll be the one to just get right into it. It's not the town's purview. It is the purview of the state. However, I do believe in transparency, and a couple of the action plans that are required through the state is, and Ms. Putnam kind of touched on this, is if it is hit on site and you can move it on site, you are required to map it and record a plan at the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds, which I would have no problem providing that information to the town. I can't tell you what they would do with it from there or where it would go, but I have no problem providing that information. If, for whatever reason, something had to come off of site, we are required to bag it, tag it, and show you a receipt as to where it went, and I have no problem providing that information as well. So I will reiterate that the state prefers something like this to be done on a site like this. One thing I think we all need to keep in mind, and again, Ms. Putnam touched on it, is this is not oil. It does not migrate. It does not move. The hazard comes from when it is floating in the air, and the best way to do that is to keep the fill on top of it and compress it with something heavier like pavement and concrete, which is what we're proposing here tonight. And I don't know if James has anything to add to those 2 points, but I wanted to make sure that I addressed each comment of yours so that way we didn't get too far ahead and I missed a couple of them.
Yeah, I'll add something quick, if I may. As far as dealing with the state goes, our communication with the state and permitting the state doesn't happen in a vacuum. We're required to send what is the AOT binder, a copy to the town, and then provide DES with a certified mail receipt showing that we have done so, which also includes any RFMIs. So if we have to revise the plans, revise the permit, revise the binder in any way, we then have to send that to the town as well, and also make the town aware of RFMI questions that we're getting from the state. So this process that we're going to take on with the state as far as permitting goes, the town is going to be, kind of with us every step of the way, and will be kept up to speed as to what's going on. And we can even make a more conceded effort with asbestos particularly, if that's something that the board would like. We can point those items out instead of just giving you, a pile of paper. Here's our 300-page drainage binder. We can say, the asbestos notes are found on page 170 or whatever the case may be. We're more than happy to drill into that a little more with the town and provide the town a clearer picture on what the state's going to require when it comes to the asbestos material.
Definitely. And I apologize, because I did miss one of them. You had mentioned Conservation Commission, so I want to make sure we touch on that. We did have a meeting that was last Monday on the 13th. It was at that meeting that it was discussed that really just the last thing that they needed to do to get to a recommendation was to have a final site walk. They chose to schedule that on Monday. I had asked them at that meeting if there was anything of substance that they needed for that recommendation. It was clerical in nature. We had pretty much a cut and paste error on our CUP application versus what was on one of the exhibits we showed them. But other than that, they were good to go. And it was our CU application showed a larger number than what was on the exhibit, and the exhibit that you have tonight has that correction on it. However, their recommendation that they provided went with the larger amount that was shown on the exhibit, on the CUP application. It was a unanimous decision by the board. They had stipulations in there that I'd be more than happy to go over with this board, but I think as you guys have been through this numerous times, the first 8 or probably 10 of them are the same as just about every other site that you would see. There was some other ones on there relative to LED lighting for certain animals in the area that to not use that, and I don't think we can really comply with that because I don't believe halogen lights or of that nature is available. And there was a couple other ones, one concerning willow trees to try to save those on the property, which, if we're able to, I'm more than happy. But I think that their recommendation is pretty formal and standard in nature and not a whole lot different than what you have seen in the past.
Okay. No,
Mr. Crowley.
thanks. Now, he got, well, as far as conservation, I really, hopefully I get the board impression that I try to be thorough, but I really would like to read over this, and at some point in time, we'll probably be determining when we might have the next public hearing on this. It's a very complicated project overall, but I guess just so I know, I'm trying to get a base, well, I'm kind of skipping around here a little bit. Again, on asbestos, a lot of this information, when I was researching, it's supposed to come down to the town health officer. Well, I can't even really figure out, I know it used to be the fire department, somebody in there, but What I'm really concerned about is I want the public to be able to come to town hall and say, gee, I want to know about the asbestos, how it's going on, and they don't have to go to the state. All the documentation is here, and it looks like all I want to do is put in stipulations to.
I'm trying to understand, Mr. Crowley. So you're trying to create a whole new process for the town to record and monitor how this asbestos is going?
No, it's,
Because,
the
and just
state
for-
runs the show.
right,
The applicant deals with the state.
yeah.
The state, if you read all the, at certain points in time, I'm getting old, I don't remember all the details I come up with, but that's the reason I wanted the planning board to see the various steps that I proposed. It all falls in that at certain points in time, yes, most definitely, whatever the state has ruled on different action plans and stuff like that, boom, it comes down here. It's definitely at Hudson Town Hall for the public, anybody else to look at. That was pretty much my driving force on this.
Yeah, that sounds like a whole new process.
Mr.
No,
Chair.
it's,
Mr. Dema would like the opportunity to speak on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if Mr. Crowell is referring to this information or any future information related to construction and what they find out there is available to the public, we do have a document server, and anyone that's willing to do the research related to any property in town, they can come in and it's basically available to the public. They come to the town hall and they're saying, I'd like to know any information that you have related to this property. And they will find the site plan approval, any documentations related to alteration of terrain permit, any approvals related to this property will be available to the public if they come and look at it. We don't advertise for it, but we have it available for everyone. If you, as public, come in and say, I don't like to come in, but I was wondering if you can send me a PDF of X, Y, and Z, we can do that too at no cost, because obviously we print things out for you, but it's available to everyone. If that's what you're referring to, if someone would like to know about this in the future, they can come in and say, I'd like to have information, any information you have related to this property, it will be available, just like it is available right now.
So just maybe I can, so according to the applicant, you're gonna go to state, every time you find asbestos or something, the state's gonna change your AOT permit, right? So that gets updated, or your binder, or whatever you were talking about. That binder is automatically forwarded to the town of Hudson.
Yes.
The town of Hudson automatically places it onto the dock server attached to the project. So the process already is established.
Yes.
It has existed, so if
Yes.
it's asbestos site, anybody could come into town hall and request if they have an AOT permit, because
Actually, AOT permit,
Or
this
whatever
will
the
be
binder
remediation related to the asbestos. So similar, the most recent one you did is 25 Barrett's Hill, I believe, the 7-lot subdivision across from Brock's. So that had to do a remediation plan. There was asbestos at the site, as you know. They found it where it was, they moved it. That plan was mapped out for the town. It got submitted to us, and it's on that particular project folder, and it's uploaded if you want to look at it. So it's at the state and it's at the town.
so it sounds like Mr. Crowley's concerns are already addressed.
It
And
happens right
already-
now, it's in place. It's not for every community, but Hudson is one of those few communities. When I worked in Nashville, this wasn't the case. But in Hudson, everything that gets brought into us gets uploaded, so it's available to that. So when the town planner completes his projects and everything gets uploaded as it comes in towards the end, like the final plan, Mylars, recorded, site plan, all that all gets uploaded. It's available to everyone. When a building permit comes in and it gets processed, that also gets uploaded. So you have the plan, the floor, the mechanical, the electrical, the gas, everything that we process from the town side gets uploaded to that map and parcel number.
But-
Now, there can be a lot, and you have to do the research unless you want something specific, but everything is available.
And that information is not available online. They have to physically come into the building or to the library
Yes.
to access that
Yes.
dock server.
Correct. And if you want to print it out, you also are available to do that. Or if you want to have a PDF, if you know exactly what you're looking for, we'll find it and email it to you at no cost.
So does that
Well-
satisfy the 13 stipulations?
I guess in a way, I have done what you have talked about.
Mhm.
It's not easy.
It's not. You have to know what to look for or for certain red flags, absolutely. Some are easier than others. This particular project will have a lot on its folder. It has a lot right now as far as asbestos, known, asbestos hits within the site. You go to Merrill Park location that we own, there's also hits as well. We also have a map that's for internal use where asbestos hits are in town. You can also go on a GIS portal at the state and you know which sites in Hudson and Nashua have hits as well. So there's a lot out there, but you have to look for it. You have to know exactly what you're looking for. But if you are our average Joe and you just like to know what it's in this property, I think we have a very good, semi-friendly, very friendly, I would say, system in place. And the staff is there to provide support if you need help. Someone comes in looking for this, can you walk me through? We do that, either here or at the library.
If I may, always, even back when we were in conceptual, when you saw the overview plan, it looked like all of pretty much the south end was asbestos. Now they go out there and every time they dig a test pit, oh, I guess it's none here because we're going to add a detention area, a stormwater treatment area. And it just seems like it's an amoeba in a way.
So at that
Do
point,
we really know what's-
those comments were directed to the applicant. I'll let the applicant answer those.
So-
You're good, Mr. D.
So twofold.
Thanks.
I think we can obviously only satisfy a portion of the first comment of this new system that Mr. Crowley's talking about, which is we will provide that information through our reports. Again, what the town does with it after there and how available that is or how people find that, obviously that is not within our control or our ability. The existing conditions plan that you just referenced that shows a lot of hash lines states approximate location of asbestos cap. That was done in 1989 through 1991 and had some revisits to check the health of that cap over the years. However, in no documentation that we could find, nor with the conversations up at DES, could we get a confirmation on exact location of that asbestos. What they did was say, look, we know we put it out there. We're just going to cover the whole area and tell you this is the about area of that. So it's on us to determine the exact location of it, and that's why the mapping that we will be providing after will be that much more accurate and up to date with a specific location. When you go and move that on site, you are actually now going to have obviously, Mr. Crowley, I'm sure you know, back in 1991, they didn't have GPS surveyors. Right now, when we go in and locate that, we're going to have a GPS coordinate on that with an X on a map that'll show that exact location. What I can say is we dug down to the water table. Where that water table was in 1989 or 1991, where the asbestos was at those times, or where we're digging may not have all been in the same exact location. We would have had to, kind of hit all of those right in a row to find that. So in no way, shape, or form am I not saying it's out there. I'm just saying we don't have an exact location, and neither does the state, but there is an action plan in place to fix that as we go along. And, ultimately, and I know it's not what people want to hear, but there is no magic wand that can be waved to give, I think, all of the information that we, including myself, would like before we go out there and start digging for this project. However, there is a safe procedure in place to make sure that it's done correctly.
And just to follow up, there's a potential you could go out there and that asbestos is 8 feet down and you may never even touch it.
There is that possibility. Yeah.
Because nobody knows the
I
depth.
would tell you
of
that is my hope.
that is your hope and prayer.
That is my absolute hope and prayer.
That's the added benefit of the site, or I guess redesign or revisions, is that our area of disturbance in that asbestos cap is less now. So we're also decreasing the, I guess, probability of disturbing existing asbestos by shrinking our footprint of disturbance.
But I just wanted to clarify that it is quite possible you could go out there and never reach into any asbestos And so the actual mapping of where the asbestos is located will never be updated.
That is correct.
Just don't want to set any false expectations that,
Right, the only chance of it being updated is
If you
for one
find
of the, well, and again, this person has to be licensed to say, yes, that is it, and this is where it's going. And they are certified excavation companies that do that. So it'd be one of those that says, yep, that's it, here's where it's gonna go, and here's how we're gonna handle it. But yeah, if that never occurs, the plan does not get updated. I'm sure the state would still utilize the approximate location and then have what our development is on top of that considered a new portion of that cap. And then I'm sure that we would have to have some monitoring of that, obviously, in the future. But again, the benefit to this not being an oil product is it does not migrate.
back to you, Mr. Crowley.
Okay, well, I don't know. So right now, my 8 or 9 page memo, it's still up to me to go through and figure out if it's answered any of this stuff, or this is what's going to answer it.
I will have
Yeah.
Jim speak to that.
So I took the time yesterday, and I apologize it wasn't sent out sooner, but I took the time to go through all your comments one by one. And what I found personally was that they were good questions and good observations, and most of them were addressed as either staff or part of the F&O review. So a lot of these comments were already revised as part of the letters that you received in your packet for staff and F&O. And then in addition to that, these are also observations and things that DES and the state would have also likely picked up on as well. So a lot of these comments have been addressed, most of them have been addressed, and it's going to go to the state where they're going to re-review what we're going to submit to them. So there'll be, I guess, another level of review and scrutiny on the project. But all the comments that you have come up with in your March 27th, we've gone through and stated the revision to the plan, or, with regards to the asbestos, what we're going to do for the action plans, and how we're going to address those comments. So for what it's worth, we did take the time to go through them and make sure that we address them one by one.
No, this is more than I get. And other times I send it to the town planner, she passes it on, but then
I will add to that. Staff was adamant to make sure that your questions were answered. I could understand the frustration for not having that done by other applicants, but I did not take it lightly. And I hope that it shows that I made my word in that meeting when I told you we were going to answer every single one of your questions, that we made sure that we did that. And quite frankly, we did it twice, because the first time around, that plan changed. And so I wanted to make sure that James did that for the one that you have in front of you tonight, which is why, yes, it was a little bit later to the game, but I didn't want to come in here with answers that was irrelevant to what our discussion was.
yeah, I appreciate that. Makes my ego feel better anyway. I just I'm old and slow, so hang in there with me. The New Hampshire alteration terrain permit was supposed to be an attachment G digital. I didn't see it in the packet materials.
It's online. It was digital only.
Well, I went online, the packet material, I didn't notice it. I guess I'll have to try again. All right.
Because I was there.
So I will add to that, if I may, and I'm sure James can speak to it as well. Obviously, we have not received a finalized permit from them, but it has been submitted. We are going through the actions, and actually, James has it pulled up on the screen there for you. Perfect. Beat me to it.
Yeah, this is the AOT binder at all. It's current blur right now. It's about 243 pages, but a lot of that is background information like soil types, rainfall data, things like that. The meat and potatoes of the actual permit itself can just be boiled down to the plans, which is what we're reviewing tonight. A lot of this information is background and supportive information. I don't want to use the word fluff because I take pride in my reports, but that's really what it comes down to, is a lot of just fluff to support the plans and the calculations that we show.
Well, I hope you didn't indicate you have to do any blasting out there, especially the asbestos.
Well, that was one benefit over there. When we dug the test pits, there was no indication of that, so you and anybody else won't have to worry about that.
And again, the revision date on the plans that we have is March 16th of this year. And is that what everybody is reviewing, peer review, the Conservation Commission, everybody is using the same plans?
No,
Because the reason I ask is because when I read Fuss and O'Neill, based on revision, I was wondering if it was the March 16th plans, but they also included June 16th materials they reference. I just
Correct.
wonder,
there was
are we all on the same page, or
My
is there
understanding-
even more information?
in your packet tonight. You have a June set of plans, which is the most recent Fuss and O'Neill comments. And then Fuss and O'Neill had some minor, those are the administrative ones that I spoke to earlier that came out, I believe, on July 8th, if I remember correctly, that we supplied answers to, which you have as well. So the revision is, and the plan set that you should have in front of you right now is definitely not the March 16th one. It should be a June 16th or June 19th plan set that was submitted, over a month ago now. I would hope that everybody got a chance to review that.
Yeah, the plans that we gave, we include plot stamps on our plan just so that if someone needs to go back for whatever reason and dig up the CAD file or find a location where that plan came from, there is a plot stamp on each plan showing the print date. So the plans in front of you were published on June 19th, and they were based on the Fuss and O'Neill letter.
I
Mr.
hate
Bullock?
to be dumb, but the
Well, Mr.
revision
President,
date says
Ms.
March.
Mr. Crowley, one moment, please.
I
Mr.
think
Bullock.
that's where Mr. Crowley's confusion is, because the revision date was not updated.
Oh, in the title block.
In the title
Okay.
block,
As-
yes. I think that's
That's your
where the
point.
confusion is coming from.
Okay.
So the plans have been updated. They didn't update the one line in there that said the day it was revised.
So,
If
if
you
I,
look
if
down,
I may add.
down in the right corner, it says
June 2026.
Okay, that's,
It's just not in the revision block.
all right, yep.
Okay.
I see, right
But it's
there.
not up here.
But it's also right there. Yeah, no, I see that catch, yeah, Mr. Crowley, you are correct, we owe you a revision date over there, but as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, it does show the date of print for these plans as June 19th.
I hate to
Which-
say it, but
which I
even
understand-
though it says the date is June,
Correct, Mr. Crowley, I understand your confusion.
yeah,
Just because it says the date that it was printed was June 19th, you're looking for the specific date in which the revision was done, and this was submitted to the town, right?
okay.
To make sure everybody's on the same plan set.
So it's based on March information, but it was one minor change, and now it's June.
I'm not going to speak for the applicant, but I'm assuming that the applicant made revisions. They did it sometime in June, and June is probably when it was submitted to the town for the revisions.
Correct. So to James's point, there is a stamp. If everybody would look at the cover page, just to get more accurate, it's actually June 19th, 2026 at 11:31 a.m. So the far left side in the print, it has a stamp for the CAD drawing as when that revision was. And I would like to add, in no way, shape, or form was it a minor revision. I think what we spoke to tonight was a major revision in the reduction of impervious area. We're talking over an acre of impervious area pulled out of the buffer. We're talking 32,000 square feet of impervious area up by Building A that's going to be removed as a reduction even after the improvements that we're proposing are in there. Numerous traffic comments, Fuss and O'Neill comments. There was a significant amount of work done, so the information from March is no longer valid. It would be the information from June, and my understanding, comments from July 8th, I believe that came in, which is in your packet from Fuss and O'Neill, which we supplied additional information to that as well.
I hate to be confused, but
So pretty much. the original plan set you got, right? The original plan set you got when this was brought to us, right?
Yeah.
Throw it out. All the comments from Fuss and O'Neill prior to this submission, throw them out. And only be looking at this recent submission and all the peer review commentary from the recent submission. So the original information you received is basically no longer valid because the plan has been revised and changed. You with me?
So the plans that I have in front of me are all revised, and they're as of June of this year.
Yes.
June
That is
19th.
the testimony of the applicant.
Yep.
Okay.
And it is,
But I have 3 letters, the CUP, the peer review, and staff. They're all dated responses in July
Correct.
8th.
correct,
So those responses,
Those are
those are in reference to the new plan.
correct.
And I will have staff verify that. Mr. Bowick, that is correct? All those comments are made based off of this new plan set.
So the peer, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Duma?
so the peer review received it June 19th. Their updated response, so after we address their first set of comments, typically there's 2 or 3 rounds of these comment letters that come back and forth. They sent one out in March. We revised our plans, which was the June 19th. They sent another one out in July, and the comments in that one were a majority of them administrative or detail in nature, and we're hoping to take the comments from this board tonight, preferably with some stipulations or a conditional approval, and supply a final plan set listing all of the revisions in one, ready to go for recording.
You got that? No more confusion? Because if you're confused, I think we need to get that fully clarified.
Well, I probably got a little less hair on my head, top of the head, but now it's starting to make sense. No, it's a complicated project. There's been many iterations to it. I'm just trying to, am I shooting for a moving target, or do I have the information in front of me in some form that I can hang my hat on? That's all I'm
You have.
trying to verify.
I'll put it to you this way. The information that's in front of you is what you have today.
Okay. And then they're gonna make another revision if we come up with various thoughts in that.
Got them written down so far, and to be honest, I
Okay.
think they're minor in nature.
Well, I guess another question, I'm going down my hit list here. Staff recommendations, page 5 of 5. Board may not take action on application until written recommendation has been received from the Conservation Commission. Just received that tonight. But I guess my question, does this apply to the planning board obtaining Hudson Fire Department response concerning the state fire marshal ruling as well? Because there was a major question about 2 access points, I guess.
So the first statement I'll make is, I hope the staff doesn't take this the wrong way. Staff cannot dictate to the planning board whether they approve a plan or not, right?
Okay.
The planning board has that ultimate authority. The staff may not be recommending it, but the planning board has that ultimate authority. So I just want to clarify that. I'm not saying that it was a wrong statement, but it just was worded incorrectly. Now, as for the concerns from the fire department, Mr. Dumont threw his hand up in the air, said, would you like the applicant to address those concerns?
All I'm worried about is that I've been on this board. If it's a permit issued by the state or somebody else, here's the state fire marshal going to make a ruling. The planning board we can do conditional approvals and cross our fingers, hope for the best, but we can't delay a conditional approval if the applicant did everything he could. here's something here that'll be open-ended, or could be, or even a next future meeting. Does that dictate, the planning board can only say, gee, wish we had it, but we don't, so we can't do anything? But it's a major point, whether the state fire marshal,
So what I would say is the RSA, the state RSA does not allow the planning board to hold up on the basis of other permits, right? So if the state requires an additional permit, like the AOT or DES requires a permit, we can't hold them up for that. I don't really, because I don't believe the applicant has actually addressed the concerns of the fire department, but it's the planning board's decision, is where I'll go with that.
what's funny about this one is the town has requested a ruling, and fire department's waiting on a ruling, and if they don't get it before we get down to final decision time, and we're out of luck.
Right, I would say, because granted, we are out of the window clock because of deferrals and things. Is there a potential in the future that due to the clock and the state fire marshal doesn't get back to the fire chief, then I would say at that point, if the planning board was going to do something, they could make it conditional on that ruling and determination, because that's not really a permit. It's a ruling and determination on the fire code, which the planning board has no authority to touch. Same with the building code.
Hate to beat this to the ground, but it just was something that seems like it's really a major point for this project.
The applicant keeps raising his hand, so I believe he wishes to address that. Are you willing to yield the floor for the applicant to address that? Mr. Newman.
I'm hoping, and I believe I can offer quite a bit of clarity here. When this project was going through, it was initially flagged because of NFP 1141, which was raised by the town of Hudson's fire marshal, which speaks to a number of units on a dead-end street. And a secondary access may be required after you exceed 100, and I believe it's either 100 or 101 units. There's a threshold there. Our back three buildings are at 108, so it was flagged. Dave Hebert, the fire marshal, said, I don't have the authority over this. You need to go file for a variance at the state level back in March, which we did. That variance, believe it or not, is still in the process right now. I received communication from Jessica Plant, who is the direct aide from Sean Toomey, who is the state fire marshal, who stated to me on Friday that they do not believe that they have the authority to grant that variance. That in their eyes, it does not meet or does not need to meet 1141. They referenced 1831 and don't quote me on this one, BCD. It was a very long code that basically states that the AHJ, authority having jurisdiction, may require or look into the possibility of a secondary access if certain things, extreme weather conditions, whether it be a flood or limitations of existing roadways, are not able to adequately provide fire services to those units at the end of that dead-end road. Now, I can say that through Fuss and O'Neill, we addressed the main one that I think probably popped in everyone's head is flooding, because we have a crossing. We increased our road height, and we also provided a LOMA tonight that shows that everything is removed out of the floodplain. With that being said, it's my understanding that the fire marshal is still in communication because he believes that the state is the one that has the authority over that. It's not my decision. However, while they're battling that out, I think it's relatively an easy solution for this board because, one, it does not change the site plan. If we are not granted relief from that, or it is determined that our number of units are not allowed, Our simple solution is going to be to reduce those number of units internally. The plan outside, the roadways, the building size, none of that will change. Those are all floor plan and building permit issues that come after the fact. So I understand the concern for it, and I get the frustration, because I've been dealing with it for 4 months. However, we have two entities going back and forth to figure out who is in control of it, and unfortunately, as of today, when I spoke to Jessica at about 1 o'clock, I believe it was, she had still not had a chance to communicate with Dave, so they have not linked up. So I hope that adds some clarification. We're aware of it. However, I think a simple stipulation is just that we must comply with the fire code, which I will say flat out is already a requirement. But if you want it on the plan, more than happy for that to be on the plan. I hope that adds some clarification. It's a long answer, but
Oh, I'd
That's
rather
the
hear the
detail.
long answer than,
Mr.
Whatever.
Crowley loves long answers. Long questions, long answers. Back to you, Mr. Crowley.
okay. I know you, well, I know you talked about proposed parking. I see on the site data sheet, I think that's current to these plans, says you're proposing 278 parking spaces, and you're required 247 parking spaces. According to the data sheet, that's page 4 of 8 on attachment A. So I guess gotta give you a compliment. You're working a lot, reducing impacts and stuff like that. Oh, and then also 1.5 spaces per unit type thing. Sounds like you're not in complete agreement with that.
no, I guess just touch on that point. We were preferring to do the 2 spaces per unit. However, the concerns were obviously buffer impacts, wetland, impervious area, all of those things. I think that the site will operate without issue at the 1.7. I would have been more cautious if we went down to the state mandated 1.5.
I just need clarification, because you keep saying 1.7, the waiver's for 1.5, and on the plan set, it says 1.5 for parking calculations.
I will turn that one over to James. So I know the residential units, when you average out the space we're providing, came in at the 1.7, and that might be the difference, but
Yeah, for B, C, and D, we broke it out into kind of separate parking lots. So the parking lot for building B has 51 spaces, which equates to 1.7 spaces.
All right, I see what you did.
Yeah, the 1.5 is just to show by state law, at the maximum allowed, it would be 45 spaces per the state law. But we're showing 51 spaces, which is the 1.7.
And the data sheet doesn't look like it's probably been updated, right? This is probably the original data sheet, because it says 116 two-bedroom units at 2 spaces per unit.
Correct. Yeah, the plans is the most up-to-date
Right.
document that the calcs and it's going to be recorded and.
Just, Mr. Crowley was
Right.
talking about the data sheet, so I wanted to clarify with Mr. Crowley that the data sheet is based off of 2 spaces per unit. The plan set is based off of, calculation comes out to 1.7.
Okay. No, it's,
yeah,
Just
the
say,
note in the plan is the most obviously revised.
Right.
yeah.
And this is what's going to be signed and recorded, so this is the set in stone
Right.
document that we can
Well,
look back on.
The reason I bring up the point, eventually I get to one, but it shows that you have supposedly a few excess parking spaces in that. When I look at these plans, I get heartburn every time I see something in a wetland buffer area. I've noticed that dumpsters seem to, part of them are shifted into those buffers and stuff, and I don't think you know, even though you have enclosures and everything else, they're probably not the best thing to be near a wetlands to start with. I can't argue with you if you're in a building envelope type area, but please look at that on where your various dumpsters are.
So to that point, I will say, we did review that. It was actually worse before, as I'm sure we can all imagine, with a larger parking lot. But what you are left with is a couple of factors that all kind of, I guess, run into each other. One of them is obviously parking that we feel is necessary to make sure that the site functions without an adverse effect to the town, people ending up on the street. The other issue is space in an open area enough that you can turn a fire truck or emergency apparatus around in. And then the room and the space that you're left to put a dumpster that functions within that site, as it's not a nuisance to the people that are going to be living there. And the third one to that is also, just construction in nature, which I'll have James speak to, but the way that these are built and graded flow away and are captured on the sheet flow, and then if there was any kind of leakage, runs to those detention basins. But
Yep, exactly. To Dylan's point, the dumpsters are going to be pitched away from the buffer areas or the wetlands so that if anything spills or leaks, it's going to be diverted to the drainage systems. So although a portion of them lies within the buffer, that doesn't necessarily mean that the dumpster is going to drain in that direction.
there was no way that we could find to eliminate all of the buffer impact in totality. But I would hope that our, I think it was around 40,000 square foot difference shows that we've made a significant effort to do that. And there is also curbing to capture that, so it's not just reliant on grading and sheet flow. There's curbing to make sure that even if for some reason you had a heavy rainstorm, it's only going to be able to run in one direction.
Well, here we go is the building A area is what troubles me. Thanks for putting that out. But building A is in the wetland buffer. And quite honestly, I do not believe the planning board has ever approved this type of primary building intrusion. I mean, I don't know, I think I've seen where they brought up swimming pools above ground or maybe a shed or something, but I guess what gets me, what I look at is, what are alternatives? Well, the alternative is you eliminated the non-residential aspects there. You do have another food court area down the deal. It seems like we're kind of vague on drive-through restaurant and that. If this was just converted to residential multi-family dwelling, automatically your 75-foot buffer goes to 50. That would legally probably put this building to where it's not in a buffer. And I think the landowner still gets use of the property.
Yield to Mr. Dumont.
Well, I think that's a unique question, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but I would imagine that just by changing the use of the building, which would reduce the 50-foot to 70 or 75 to 50-foot, wouldn't just make these impacts go away, right? We don't put something on the plan to say, well, how do we skirt around that? And that wasn't our goal here. Our goal was to make the site usable, feasible and attractive, as well as an improvement to what is there, right? So I would say that by just changing the buffer down to 50 feet, did you really do anything? I don't think so, personally. What I think that the benefit over here is with Building A is that currently you have 32,000, that is almost an acre more impervious in the buffer and extending into the wetland if we do nothing here. Today existing. You have a foundation that is existing today that, in theory, my understanding of it is if there's a foundation in the ground, you can still build on that. Something could be done there today. So with that, I think that the improvements that we're proposing here, yes, there is work within the buffer, and yes, we're showing it on the plan, but the benefit to moving forward with this far exceeds that caution. Again, I think it has to be noted that the reduction in 32,000 square feet of existing impervious that is there today will be going away with this. So if this does not happen, you have a far worse outcome to that wetland, which is what the buffer is intended to protect. Yes, the majority of it is stormwater, but I'll also add to it is I've watched a couple of these meetings, and I'm sure you guys are aware of legislation that will be coming forward next year when it comes to stormwater management. But these gravel wetlands, while I personally believe a regular detention basin is basically a wetland, these are actually wetlands. We are expanding that wetland and improving the filtration over there. So to me, those benefits, that reduction in impervious area, that increase to or adding the gravel wetlands over there, that's going to help not only plant life, but habitat as well as water quality, far exceeds changing it to a residential use to skirt the buffer or not doing anything over there today. That's a long answer for you.
And I'd like to throw my 2 cents in on that. So the way I look at Building A from the wetland buffer standpoint, the wetland buffer doesn't exist today. There is no buffer. It's an impervious surface. There is no filtration. There is no protection of the wetlands. So are we actually granting anything in that wetland buffer other than improving it? For me, for Building A, there is no wetland buffer on that property now. I have basically an impervious surface, so all the road grime comes off and dumps into the wetlands. I've got nothing stopping it. Now, the applicant is actually implementing stormwater system, retention pond filtration. So when I look at this, this is a great improvement to the existing conditions, and there is no wetland buffer today.
Well,
Mr. Crowley?
Yield if you want to input.
I was just going to throw my 3 cents in. The state, when it comes to redevelopment projects, if the applicant were going to utilize the existing pavement and not change the site, not change the grading, just take the pavement that's there and make that fit around the proposal, by the state rules, they'd only have to treat 60% of that existing pavement. But because we're now doing proposed pavement, we're going to be treating 100% of the proposed pavement. So in theory, the applicant can leave the pavement there, leave it exactly the way it is, operate the site, and only have to treat a little over half that pavement. Instead, we're proposing to take it all out, regrade the site, enhance that buffer, and treat 100% of the proposed pavement. So not only are you taking less pavement in the proposed condition, you're also putting in more treatment than if you just left it alone and used the site as is.
Back to you, Mr. Crowley.
All good answers to that. But the thing is, you want to develop this area A, and it looks like a prime area to develop. I like how we cut it down to a smaller curb cut and everything like that. But if you just went to residential, you would be eliminating, bringing out the extra impervious that's out there. You'd be bringing it back to natural features where it would be buffer, area. You'd be eliminating the drive-through area which I'll have some questions about. You'd be eliminating the food court area. You would be reducing actually what you're adding out there impervious wise, and you would still be removing all of these other problems on the site, because that's what the planning board and the state would probably request anyway. So in a way, I just get the feeling, hey, let me do all this non-residential, a lot of good ideas on mixed use and stuff like that, but I just don't see where this area here is really conductive to that. We gotta allow a major building within a wetlands buffer, and I don't think the planning board has ever approved something like that. And there's an alternative to this, by just changing it to residential. There is an alternative to this. That's pretty much, I think you're going to be adding stormwater management, you're going to be eliminating impervious, so there's a plus to it as well. And we're not taking away any rights for the landowner to develop here. He still has use of the land. There's a lot of thought into this. Matter of fact, I think it makes a lot of sense where they just come down to a small curb cut. Maybe they only have 12 feet of green space instead of required 35 feet. I think we're trying to be accommodating. I just think we're going a little bit overboard by allowing a major structure to be in a wetlands buffer when it really doesn't have to be. Granted, it's an ordinance, but I just think some changes on plans could be done.
The applicant has raised his hand in response. You yield the floor?
I yield.
So I'll add my final thoughts to this. I don't want to belabor the point. I don't believe that a lot of the impervious area you believe will be eliminated by going to residential will actually occur. I believe what you're referencing is that the buffer will reduce, but the impervious area is going to remain the same. And to me, that impact in that area doesn't change if you do that. The drive-through may no longer be there, but the throughway will still be there, because that is a required emergency access for an apparatus to get around and turn around in that parking lot and to be able to service that building. So I can't just eliminate that. I have to make sure that there's an area for a fire truck to be able to come in and actually turn around. And as you can see, the parking lot to the right, if that was removed, would then have to be widened, which then just kind of offsets that. The other point to that is that if it went to residential, that building would be twice as big, which would then increase, obviously, water runoff and impervious areas. So I think that what we did here, quite frankly, is what, and I try to take this stuff to heart, because I hear it over and over and over again in this town. We all live here, but the master plan. And one of the things in that master plan is mixed-use development. Another part of that was housing. We encompass that here. And I understand that those are guidelines, and this board is tasked with following the ordinances and the land use regulations, but we do that here. There's an existing site. It's not something new going in that buffer. It's a grave reduction, and I will say a large improvement. That buffer line on the plan, changing that down to 50 feet, yeah, the color goes away on this exhibit, but did we really do anything? I don't think so.
Mr. Craig.
Well, I think you got a major point on fire truck turnaround, but I really think if it went, you already got, 8 units of residential up above? Why can't there be 8 down below, too? The way the variance was issued by the ZBA, when you went to this mixed use, they said no more, I think, than 108
116
in the G zoning district. This
No.
is a business district.
My understanding of that variance was a cap to the number of units for the site, and if there was any increase to that number of units, we'd be required to go back to the zoning board. And the reason why I believe that's the case is because we had a slight change, and if you guys remember, last time, I was informed by staff, I believe it was the night before our planning board meeting in February, that I no longer complied because we tried to make some updates and the unit count had changed and we had to ask for a deferral and we went back to ZBA to get that updated. You know, I'll leave it at that. I think that this is a responsible plan. I think that this improves that wetland tenfold, and I think that the impacts to that buffer, I'm going to say it again, are decreasing them by 32,000 square feet. And to James's point, if we wanted to use what's there today, we could, and I only got to treat 60% of it. I don't want to do that because I think that's taking the short way out or the easy way out, and I think that that is a harm to Hudson and a harm to that area, but I think we have to at least acknowledge the balancing act here. So.
All right, planning board members, it's 9 o'clock. The chair would really like to take a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
Anybody opposed to that? If you are, the chair's discretion is to place us in 5-minute recess. So we're at recess at 9:02. We'll be back. And we'd like to welcome you back at 9:12. I believe Mr. Crowley had the floor at the time of the break.
Okay, well, one thing I want to thank the applicant in one sense is I had to put on my long sleeve shirt because I'm freezing to death. I was hoping for more heated discussions, but no, we're very respectful and I'm glad we're
I appreciate
going
the
about this.
conversation.
Yeah, it's my objective to wonder and question, and the applicants
It's my
feel
job to
is
have the
supposed to
answers.
come up with wonderful answers.
Yeah.
And as the chair, it's my job to keep the meeting moving
that
forward.
helps too.
Let's
with the
make
process.
this happen.
But where we left off a little bit is I do have to state that a mixed-use variance was granted by the ZBA, and it was in our planning board packet, March 25th, attachment E, and it stipulates, and I'll read right off it, there shall be a cap of 116 units in the general G zone. So, like I say, you got me somewhat on the fire truck in area A. I wish there was some workaround deal there, but I just had to get out what I feel is a reasonable solution. Okay, I'll end that one, because
So we're done now, because if not, I was going to point blank ask the applicant, are you willing to remove the commercial aspect of building A?
No.
The applicant has been, the question's been asked, and answered. That way we don't have to round about it.
geez, you should be on the planning board. We need people with short answers and questions. Anyway,
Says Mr. Crowe.
Shorter questions, we get shorter answers.
since I took a roundabout deal, I do worry about queuing spaces required for food menu boards. To approve plans, planning board needs to know the number of spaces to be allocated, not a vague reference that when the tenant is found, they will have to live with what is available. I guess my question is, what are the exact queuing spaces the planning board is being requested to conditionally approve? And I worry if the queuing amount is sufficient, there'll be a future spillover that disrupt other traffic aisles. I mean, he's proposing
I
drive-through.
understand, and I brought up that exact same question at the beginning of this, and said that we require them to show the queuing space on the plan.
Okay.
So I just didn't want to
I'll defer to, I got bad hearing.
repeat the exact same, yeah, no, that's why I'm bringing it up, because it was brought up
Okay.
earlier, and
Well, thank you. You had a very good question.
Mr. Dumont has raised his hand to provide a
And I would like to add to the chair's point, as James is doing some quick math, to hopefully give people some clarification. With that type of use, I think that we all know every tenant has a different style and a different queue. You can have some that far exceed and some that are far less. It is our intent to depict to you the one drive-through with an adequate space around the building to make sure that there is nothing blocking or preventing traffic from getting around, hence the double lane as well.
And just for clarification, we require you to show 12.
Yep. No, and that's fair. Sorry, go
12.
ahead.
12. What's the 12 number in reference to?
12 queuing spaces
Okay.
for staging.
Yeah, you'll provide a minimum of 12 vehicle stacking spaces.
So I did a quick length, and the length of this, I guess, queuing aisle, we'll say, is 250 feet long, which equates to 12 and a half vehicles, with your average vehicle being 20 feet long. And the typical parking space is 18. So if you went by the 18 measurement, it'd be more like 13 or 14. So there could be 13 or 14 vehicles.
Or we could take my truck, which is like 23 feet long.
Right. So 13 or 14 vehicles stacked in this drive-through lane.
So with that, I would have no problem, obviously. I think a simple attachment to it, obviously it's not the one that gets recorded, but I think a simple, in my opinion, that's an administrative detail that can be ironed out. The room is there. You have it on record that I'm more than happy to eliminate one of those drive-throughs, which would have obviously caused a concern and not work to meet that requirement. So I hope that satisfies it. The other thing that I'm willing to do, which would be typical anyways, but I want to be transparent about it, is that if there is some significant change when the tenant is found, we are more than happy to come back through and revisit this with the board. However, getting approval on this design increases the chances of finding that tenant. I have had no luck in actually securing somebody. I have people that say, sure, we'd be interested, but let us know when you're ready to go and when you have some sort of approval, which I think has been typical in the past. We've seen developments come forward where not every tenant is understood what that will be. We have a idea and kind of a box that we're going to work within, and that is what we'll propose here tonight. And I think that there's plenty of room to queue around that, and then there's also room to pass by those with that additional lane. So.
Okay.
How we doing, Mr. Crowley? Getting down on the list?
We're working our way down. Quite honestly, I have a bunch of questions, but I'll try to keep it going as fast as I can. I guess I do have to ask the obvious, but I think I already know the answer is, are all proposed on-site storm control methods in that maintained by the landowner? There's no involvement of the town?
Correct.
Okay. See, I could ask questions.
Yeah, that was actually nice,
Okay.
quiet, direct, precise.
Okay, this one, I know there's been various comments back and forth already, but I still, a little bit of a doubting Thomas. My observation, 4 bays per attachment D. You had made a reply. Item 11, engineer responds, the stormwater ponds are designed in accordance with applicable design guidelines and regulations for water quality treatment, including line 4 bays. If petroleum is spilled, it would be discharged into line 4 bays and contained without being discharged to wetlands. And I heard that, okay, a lot of your tenants are going to be watching this, driving by it, and if there's any debris or oil or whatever, they're going to get excited. Plus, after major storm events, I guess that's during construction. Sounds like after construction's complete, then twice a year or something like that? There has to be an official.
At least twice a year, and that major storm event stipulation still carries into the inspection and maintenance manual.
Okay,
So if you get major storms, someone has to go out there and make sure that the ponds are draining, there's no washout, berms aren't getting blown out, the spillways are still working, and things like that. But I think I think your question's geared towards the concern of using the 4 bays for oil
yes,
containment.
because, I hold.
Because I want to, the benefit of the 4 bay is that it's open and you can see it. If you have catch basins, those are, sometimes 6 feet deep and they're small and you really can't see inside of them. So if that's being used to contain the oil, you're going to have a harder time noticing that in a catch basin than you are in a 4 bay. At least the 4 bay is open to the air. You can see it at a quick pass by. You don't need to pop any rims. You don't need to pop any covers. You don't need to stick your head in it to look. It's much easier to spot debris and oil in a 4 bay than it is in a catch basin because you can see it more readily, which is an added benefit of doing it this way.
Well, if I may, when I go to the New Hampshire Stormwater Manual, they talk about, they call them sediment 4 bays, and then they even give the New Hampshire DES guideline for them. But when they go pollutant removal, they just total suspended solids only. And specific gravity of petroleum products is less than water, so it floats. And I'm worried about, granted, you could inspect these visually. But what about that first flush and overflow? And it just seems like there's real potential for flowing into the other part of your treatment system and eventually maybe out into the wetlands.
Right.
And that's my concern. Like the standard catch basin with a oil water separator.
Right.
There's no doubt. Granted, you got to look down there, but then you're supposedly having your manual, inspection manual that you're supposed to remove there every now and then. And I just don't get a feeling that sediment 4 bays are really the proper answer for pre-treatment. I just wish there was some other helpful design. I don't know, if you do like curb inlets or something like that, keep the pipes up above, sort of.
Yeah. So if I may, so the main reason why we can't do catch basins, and the reason why we didn't do catch basins, is because of the soil type and high depth to, or I guess shallow season high water table. So the ability to do underground structures like oil water separators or catch basins become severely limited because of the season high water table issues on site, which is why we went with sheet flow drainage to 4 bays. Now, the reason why the document you're looking at lists total suspended solids is because when they're talking about pollutants, they're referring to nitrogen, phosphorus, and total suspended solids, which those are the 3 items that the state looks at for treatment in these stormwater systems. So just because it doesn't reference oil or petroleum as a in that chart doesn't mean that it's not allowed to be there. And in fact, in cases that I've done designs like this, they are commonly used as a form of capture and containment for oil spills because they are by nature lined. And with that first flush coming through the storm, that's an inch of rain. That's what's considered the first flush. These 4 bays are 2 feet deep. So you have an inch of rain going over the parking lot and then entering into a 4 bay that's 24 inches. So there would be enough vertical head separation between that first flush and the top of the 4 bay so that if anything did get in them, it would be contained within that cell and not washing over into the treatment cells. But just by the nature of the site and how it's constructed in the constraints that we have, doing catch basins and concrete structures just really aren't feasible because we don't have the vertical separation to outlet pipes from catch basins to the ponds, which is why we had to go with forebays and use them as the primary treatment. And I will say that I understand that there are going to be vehicles here. I understand that there is the potential for oil to be spilled, but this isn't a commercial lot or a car lot, a used car lot. There's not going to be like maintenance occurring. People are going to be parking their cars, getting in, going to work, going shopping, and coming back. So this isn't the place that's going to see any vehicle maintenance or really anything strenuous on these cars to cause oil changes. So I think the probability of an oil change happening is going to be far less on a use like this than a typical commercial lot, like a Napa Auto Parts or an O'Reilly or something like that, just by the nature of the use itself.
Well, for me, I noticed like Napa that people add oil and everything else right in the parking lot. Quite honestly, I've seen apartment buildings where people have worked on their cars and stuff like that. But what I get from all this is first flush, you feel confident, pretty well protected. If it's a major storm event, there could be some problems, but hopefully that's more an exception than a rule.
Yeah, and a joke in the engineering circles that, if we get a 50-year storm, a 100-year storm, the last thing that we're going to be worried about is if someone spilled a quart of oil in a parking lot. You got bigger things going on with ponds and things of that nature. So if we're getting up to those higher level events, the potential of there being an oil spill is going to be probably on the bottom of the list of things to worry about in that case.
So I'm just going to add to that. So, keep in mind DES is in agreement with what James is saying as a way to treat for these issues. I also want to highlight his statement about the use and the probability of these oil spills occurring there. And the other thing that I want to say on for the record is that it's my full intent to make sure that within any residential lease and commercial that working in your vehicle is prohibited. That is not going to be allowed here. So I know that is not the purview of this plan board, but I hope that gives you a little bit more ease. I don't want to drive through there and see a car up on jack stands. Doesn't look good, and it's not the intent of the site. So.
Okay. No, I just think it's something we should address.
I'm going to ask Mr. Crowley. We have about 30 minutes left of this meeting. Would you be willing to yield? Because I know one of the areas in which we have an issue is we don't have full staff sign-offs, and one of them falls under the engineering department, and it has to do with traffic.
Yes, I yield. I don't know if it'd be worthwhile for me to submit some of these to the town planner again, and it appears we're going to go to another meeting anyway. They would save a lot of time. I do appreciate the time and effort here. And again, it's a complicated project. Now I yield. Makes sense what you're saying.
Be happy to tackle the traffic issue, and I'm gonna be the optimistic one here. I got to be honest with you. I think that a lot of the things that Mr. Crowley raises, while valid concerns, I do believe that they are addressed and they are followed through with formal permitting through the AOT process. And if we're meeting the AOT standard, more often than not, we're exceeding the town standard. I believe the site does that. We've shown that. We've gone through formal review. Boston O'Neill has agreed with that. I'd be happy to tackle the traffic. I think that there's some easy solutions there with that. And in my mind, the issues that have been brought up, again, I'm going to state, can be handled administratively, but that's my footprint. So I'd prefer not to go to another meeting. We've not only is it, like I said, 7 months on this plan, but we're talking 3 years in the grand scheme of things from conceptual till now. So I get it. It seems to be a large project, but this is not something that just occurred yesterday. So happy to take the questions about the traffic.
I'm gonna start with the traffic route study. Well, I've made it evident, building A is my Achilles heel.
Yep.
So as I'm just going through the traffic study, which creates the chip generation, right? I see nowhere where it says a fast food restaurant. It's a strip.
Strip
It's retail.
plaza.
There's a massive difference between the ins and outs between, I'm going to use the word, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, to a strip plaza. So how do we accommodate for that? Because I'm not going to lie, I'm sitting here looking at a peak hour in the AM of a total entrance and exits of 15 cars, and I'm just thinking, the Dunkin' Donuts by my house or the Aroma Joe's does 30 to 40 in 15 minutes. So I need you to sell me on it.
So for that, the land use code or the traffic code that is a strip plaza is not only retail. That code, when you review it, encompasses restaurant space, which also figures for different varieties of that. And it takes an average of those trips, which is where that's evaluated from. For this site as well, the food trucks, I want to point out, was evaluated, which increases that number by a significant amount. However, I understand the difficulty behind it really lies with what that tenant is going to be. And if I was to give you some make-believe number here tonight, it wouldn't be anywhere near accurate. What I'm willing to say is that with the comments the engineer provided, my traffic analysis and updated responses show that what's being proposed operates at a level of service A and B on the thoroughfare of Central Street without causing delays to the ongoing traffic. Now, I think that everybody is aware that entering and or mainly exiting that site, like any driveway on Central Street, is going to have a delay. They are going to have to wait and be patient to get out. And we are not going to be able to put a street light at every entrance along Central Street. Now, that doesn't only occur here, it occurs on Low Road, and it occurs on Dairy Street in Hudson. What I would be willing to say that I think a fair trade-off to this board would be is to say that if there was a problem with the traffic entering and exiting this site causing an issue for the town, we are obviously going to be supplying a significant amount of impact fees. The ideal situation for this length of road is going to be a capital improvement plan that this board will have to evaluate. But on top, which, those impact fees would obviously be utilized for. But on top of that is a good faith effort in showing that we're trying to work with the town. I'd be more than happy if there's proof to show what we're providing doesn't work, that I have my engineer team provide the town with the conceptual plan that would create a center turn lane from the bridge where my property begins all the way to where the left-hand turn lane that exists up by Animax. Again, I think that there's going to need to be some time to, one, figure out that tenant, and which may bring us back here and satisfy that whole issue altogether, or if it's a lesser tenant that doesn't cause an issue, no problem. However, if that lesser tenant does cause an issue, like I said, I think that that's a fair trade-off. That there is no getting around that bottleneck of that road, right? You have 3 lanes or a 40-foot width of a road just east of there. You have 4 lanes just west of there. We are stuck with this entrance in that bottleneck. The plan I provided shows that with 2 or 3 cars stacking up to get in there, you can get a bus around it. We didn't want to go with a car. We wanted to use a bus to show you that there's adequate room. There's 36 feet there from shoulder to shoulder. There is enough room for 3 12-foot lanes to be accomplished. However, it doesn't make sense for that, in my opinion, to be borne just solely on this property. I believe that that is a town and a state issue. But again, if the problem is occurring because of our site, I'd be happy to contribute our engineering and supply a conceptual review if there was proof to show of that in the future. And I hope that that is a good faith effort or extension of that to this board.
This is just for me. My concern is we did the plaza down by where Starbucks is down in South Hudson. When that plaza came in, we required them they were having to drive through. They had to show us. It wasn't based on just a strip mall. It was based on a coffee shop, fast food coffee location in their traffic analysis. I believe we did it with Central Street Gas because they were, I'm having a hard time buying that strip mall covers that kind of volume that could be generated out of that type of use.
Sure. No, the only thing I can go
Which-
by.
which-
Yep.
Which, if I increase that volume, now I increase that stacking that could potentially happen onto the main road. And so now I'm kind of going out of, because I'm a strong advocate that the applicant is not required or should not be asked to make the situation better. But now are we actually in a position where we're making that roadway worse with that use?
So, to that point, the only thing obviously that I can go by is the information provided by my traffic analysis, who's telling me that those uses are covered in there. But I do agree, depending on that tenant, it can change. We've all read analysis that give you one number, you have a completely different tenant, and I'll reference Dunkin' Donuts, that is probably different than what the analysis for even that drive-through says. I think we know of a couple instances, the other one on the south end where, they provided an analysis and they exceeded that, which is why I think I'd be willing to say that if significant changes is needed, I'd be happy to come back here, but also happy to provide that conceptual plan to show how we could improve that roadway in the future. It could be a condition of approval for the traffic to be vetted before the building CO. I think that would also be fair, and that would all tie together. But
Once again, I've monopolized the conversation with other board members. As Mr. Crowley knows, I could be the only one who has this concern.
I,
You're not.
Mr. Vanderveen?
So, engineering had some comments about the water service. Has that been addressed?
Yep.
Or is the size of the pipe going in?
Yeah, we're gonna update the water service to building A to an 8-inch.
Okay, great. And then the sewer flow information has been,
Yep,
So-
that'll also be shown on the plan, showing the flow based on the building.
okay.
We don't have the numbers yet,
But it's in, yeah,
it's in the works.
there's no headbutting on those issues.
no, definitely no. We know we need to supply them, and ultimately, again, these uses are going to generate that, right? I'm sure you guys are well aware. Within the sewer district, you're supplied a certain amount of flow or a certain amount of gallons per day. We have to show our uses to justify that. Any exceedance of that requires us to go back and ask for approval to purchase additional gallons per day. In agreement with that completely, can be a stipulation on the plan.
Great, thank you.
How's that?
That's it.
Mr. Crowley?
I'll try to make them quickly. Well, I'll have to leave traffic up to others for right now. It just amazes me how you can get a level of service for a driveway F, and we just have to hope for the best that the guy
Well, I want to
pulls out, lives.
I know, I apologize for cutting you off, but that level of service F is not for that intersection. That level of service F is for how long it would take during the worst-case scenario for a vehicle to leave the site. Regardless of what you do here, that's not going to change, because that's dictated by the east and west flow of the traffic that's on that road today. So for someone to leave that site today, even just out of the parking lot, I think we all know you're going to have to wait for a safe turn. You're not just going to be able to zing through there and take a left-hand turn. You're going to have to wait a little bit. What I think is the more important thing, and what our duty is to make sure that we're not adversely impacting that thoroughfare traffic, which I do have right in front of me, is a level of service A for the eastern entrance, and I believe a level of service B for the western entrance, or they might even be both A's. So you got to look at what's leaving the site. It's labeled as site, and then obviously you have central, northeast through, southeast, and northeast or southeast through, which are actually both listed as A's. So we're showing that based on the site, we're not impacting the thoroughfare.
Okay. Like, let's see, I'll let traffic slide there.
I guess, and if you
I-
want, I'll add one other thing for the sake of conversation. We did receive notification because we figured, well, hey, boots and suspenders, right? Is that the saying? Or, to try to make sure that everything's covered. We reached out to DOT, and the response that we got from DOT was, don't bother us. This is not something of our concern. The trips that you're generating is not something that's going to adversely affect this state-owned road. So for what it's worth, I'm just throwing that out there.
Which is where my big conflict comes, right? Because, project description on the initial form was, there's no mention of a restaurant, it's just retail. Everything is based on retail, even the current parking calculations that are on there, it's just, that's my struggle.
The only point to that I can say is that from day one when I walked in here, with every conversation I've had with everybody, including traffic, this board, conservation, I've always mentioned drive-through up there. I've always mentioned the food trucks. Like I said, I'd be happy to
Yeah,
have.
and the food trucks you've compensated for, I can see that in the traffic study. I'm thinking I'm driving around town, what has a drive-up? A coffee shop, right? That's the kind of the matrix of what costs. A pizza shop doesn't have it, and that's a quick turnaround thing, though.
Well, maybe Domino's is open to get a drive-through. I don't know. No, I get the hang-up. I guess my request would be to see if there's any way for that to be vetted as a stipulation prior to building CO, and if it is turns out to be negligible or to create another problem, more than happy to come back in front of you. Not preferred, or the other option would be to, like I said, no matter what goes there, Central Street's going to need an improvement. I'd be happy to help assist with that from the private side of things.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Crowley.
No, I know loading docks, you don't really need one, was the deal, but I just think there ought to be a waiver in here, or so it's documented, whether the planning board agrees with no loading space or not. Future waiver, what I suggest. Another thing, the way this is, like area A, then building B, and then C and D, I think it's a little up in the air for me as this project could be phased.
Yes.
And if it's phased,
Yes.
should we get into substantial completion for each phase, or
So we do have
discussions
we
like
do have
that?
and I guess basically a phased approach to this. Building A is our first one, which is why I think that if the concerns lie around that, we're going to know that very quickly, and be able to satisfy that. And then the ultimate goal was really to start Building A in 27, and then in 28 or end of 27 begin infrastructure for the back buildings, roll through 28 for Building B, and so on and so forth as we go down that road to D and or C and D. So that, to me, there's adequate space in there to see, and I know this board has done it in the past. If there's proof of what we've provided here tonight or discrepancy in that, to bring us back in front of you and make sure that is taken care of.
Okay, because RSA-wise is 3 years if you define substantial completion, 5 years
Yeah, I
if
mean,
you don't.
I would think it's fair to say that if Building A is built, this is a master site plan, I would say that is a foot forward to substantial completion myself, only, based on cost alone, but by 28, if our goal is to have infrastructure in, I would say that for that back portion, that would definitely be substantial completion in my mind. And that's within, obviously, that 3-year period.
It's generally, looks like we're getting up to 9:45. Well, one deal is sort of like the chair had asked you, are you willing to give up non-residential in the A, well, I'll try the same, are you willing to move dumpster areas out of the wetland buffer or not?
We've attempted it, and I think that what you see on the plan today is the best case scenario. If we do that, parking will be reduced, and I think that you are going to adversely create another problem.
So what we see is what we get, essentially, is.
I wouldn't put it that way, mainly because of the amount of reduction that's already occurred. I mean, one thing that does have to be considered here, and I think that, at least I hope when people walk out there, they remember what you see on a plan is substantially different than what you see on the site. You know, you look at this and you almost look as if there's this tiny island that we're trying to squeeze everything out there. What's available for land and what's high and dry looks and is much more available when you actually took part of that site walk. It's very doable, and I think it can be done safely, and I think it can be done correctly. This site is unique. It's not like every other one. That was the reason why we had to go in front of the zoning board, and that was the case that we had to make there for these specific uses. So is there going to be some give and take? Definitely. But I think that we've shown that we've responded to that and made some significant reductions.
Can I,
Mr. Crowley?
Woodmore, well, I know we got to vote on extension sometime, but everybody brings up like there's obvious flooding problems out there. Not saying 100-year, but I know we're only supposed to be raising 3/4 of an inch with volume and stuff like this, but I wonder, Barrel Brook runs through there, you got a culvert. Is that what the problem is for flooding? That Barrel Brook culvert can't handle what different storm events now? And what impacts? I guess what you're trying to, it's been third peer review or something like that.
Yeah.
You're on the volume. I know you're supposed to, per stormwater regulations, you're supposed to show what downstream impact if you can't make volume. But what exactly is the flooding problem out there?
So I'll let him,
Define it.
James, speak to the technical side of things. But from knowing this site and knowing this area, there is no flooding on this site, not one bit. The flooding occurs in front of the plaza that would be Nanking and the Burger King, which is the state and town-owned portion, or state-owned, town-maintained road that comes out of the portion of this that's owned by the town, that is Benson Park. The culvert that runs underneath that narrow bridge that carries over from our property line, or it's a little after our property line, over to that entrance into Nanking, in my opinion, is probably undersized. It also has a large grate around it that right now, I looked at it today, because quite frankly I drove over there after we had this huge downpour. There was flooding in other areas. This wasn't flooding, but I can tell you it's clogged. It's not being maintained. Who that lies on, I don't know. But I will also, and then you take that downstream, that brook has never been dredged out. It's never been maintained. Our Tonic Pond has a beaver problem where they build a dam up, and that whole pond I've seen raised by 4 feet. And where do you think that goes? So, to me, the flooding is not the problem of this site, and there's no way that this site's going to make it worse. It does occur, but in no way, shape, or form is it related to this project here.
Yeah, I guess.
So we are at 9:50.
Yeah.
Under our rules of procedure, this meeting ends at 10 p.m. unless someone wishes to make a motion to extend the meeting to 11 p.m. So I look to the board. What is the will of the board? Mr. Crowley.
I got a lot of new documentation. Like I said, my problem right now is information overload. I want to simulate it. I don't see where it's going to really help us to go to 11, beyond 10. I think we ought to, I'd like to review some of this stuff, maybe submit some more things in writing. It sounds like there's traffic issues that the town engineer isn't exactly in agreement with. So I don't know if we want to set another date certain for next meeting.
Well, I would say if nobody on this board wishes to make a motion to extend the time, then that would be one of the options in which this board has.
Okay, well,
Mr. Duma?
So if I may, and obviously this is a biased interpretation because I am the applicant, I think it would be appropriate for multiple reasons. One, obviously, there's waivers and other things that have been read into the record that could be dealt with or possibly at least given some direction to. I do think it's important to note that the burden on the applicant is to supply the information based on the requests of staff, this board, and the other boards, and third-party review. We have a deadline to meet that. We did that, and then additional comments came. We deferred. We did that, and additional comments came. I appreciate looking through everything, but I believe at this point, with the information that we've provided, we have a way to address all of those comments. If not, they have already been addressed. I would appreciate at least the chance to try to work through some of those. Ultimately, I'll leave it in your hands.
well, like I say, just tonight I received, which is a major thing, is the Conservation Commission, all their comments. I'd like to be able to read those over and assimilate them. We're supposed to get stuff in our packets, 7 days prior to? And we're just getting these the night of the meeting. I think we should give this project, it is rather complicated. The applicants put a lot of time and effort into it. But I think we should do
Well,
a very
maybe
thorough
this
review.
board, because the applicant has put a lot of time and effort into it, maybe at least address the waivers, because if those waivers aren't granted, that's massive changes and alterations that the applicant would have to, I'm not saying the planning board has to grant the waivers, but if they chose either to grant them or not grant them, are major design changes that the applicant would have to deal with. Selectman Gesper.
To maybe not a lot of the same points, but I mean, there's a lot of information that was presented tonight. I get it. We don't have staff recommendations right now. We don't have a set of stipulations to go by. I know we could talk about waivers. The way I see this is we're going to go another meeting no matter what. This isn't going to finish tonight. I would feel more comfortable myself if I had more time to now review all of this additional information that was provided this week, and to make sure that I'm clear on our staff and their recommendations on this plan. And right now, I'm not. So from my perspective, I don't think it's going to make a big difference whether we continue to 11. I mean, we can. If the board decides it's the will of the board, I'll be here till 11. But I think we're going to have to continue this to some date certain, and it just might mean more discussion at that meeting. But I think there's a lot of information to digest that we, in order to make a full and complete recommendation here on this plan or approval, that we might as well, in my mind, move forward, schedule another meeting. Let's get this done. I understand. I really do sympathize with the applicant on the time that he's taken to do this. You all have put a lot of time into it. You've done a great job of answering questions, of changing the plans accordingly. But another hour tonight isn't going to change the fact that we're going to be moving forward with another date. So that's my thought.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
If I may.
Yeah.
Regarding the waivers, I know we're running short on time, but to your point, I think obviously not going to vote on them tonight, but maybe gauge the board's opinion of them questions or things they'd like to see, because that's something that is going to affect the site plan. One of the things more so than others. So I think we would appreciate, obviously I know it's not set in stone and this isn't a vote that we're going to have, but any feedback on those, whether the board's amenable to them or not, would be appreciated on our end.
Mr. Vanderveen.
I could do 2 of those waivers in the next 4 minutes. The one on the post-development runoff volume, I'm gonna need some better description of what the heck I would be voting for. But as far as the parking calculations, that's a state thing. We've already discussed that. It's pro-housing. As far as I'm concerned, I'm voting for that. And the landscape buffer, it's an improvement of what's already there. So those are my thoughts.
Good with that, too.
Mr. Crowley.
Landscape buffer, I just think it's definite improvement to what's out there right now. No question in my mind. The volume, I still struggle with. Parking, I told you what I thought about on dumpsters and that. We got a reply. And I really do think there ought to be a waiver for loading space, just to dot our i's and cross our t's.
Okay. We're at 2 minutes.
Do you want to make a motion, sir?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I move to grant a waiver, section 275-8.C2, parking calculations to allow for 1.5 parking spaces per residential unit where 2 spaces would otherwise be required based on the board's discussion, the testimony of the applicant's representative, and in accordance with the language included in the submitted waiver request form for said waiver.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 6-0. Mr. Vanderveen.
Move to grant a waiver of section 276.11.1.b 22, 35 landscape buffer to allow for an 8 to 12-foot buffer between the right-of-way line and any pavement, gravel, or structure where 35 feet would otherwise be required based on the board's discussion, the testimony of the applicant's representative, and in accordance with the language included in the submitted waiver request form for said waiver.
We have a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any discussion on the motion?
This was the landscape buffer?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries 6-0. Mr. Dumont, I'm running out of time.
That's why I'll make one last plead here. I really appreciate handling those because it does make a significant change. You know, I'm hoping that we can continue to work together to come to a compromise. If a motion was made to extend to hear this last waiver, I'm confident that James can give you the information to explain it. If we would need to change that, ultimately that would lead to a whole nother revision for this plan because all of those ponds are going to need to be changed size. They currently meet AOT standard to meet and are shown to work, but that's going to be a change to wetland buffer impacts. It's going to be a change to the entire plan.
Mr. Vanderveen.
I would make a motion to extend for the purpose of discussing this third waiver and
We have a motion for an extension. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hurd. The intent is to extend for the discussion of the third waiver only and a continuance and then an adjournment. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Aye. Nay.
2 nays.
Motion carries 4-2. I think 4-2 with Mr. Crowley and Selectman Gesford. Opposition. All right, we have the third waiver to discuss.
So I'll let James get into the technical, but I think I'll start out with, I would ask that to gauge the board on what they deem a benefit to increasing the size of these detention bases, because that's what we're talking about is the overall volume. He has the documentation to prove that they work, that they'll suffice. that AOT, which I think everybody knows is a extreme standard, is happy with them, that Fuss and O'Neill is happy with them, which is this town's third-party review. If we were to increase those, you are going to increase wetland buffer impacts. There's ultimately no way around that. We've moved this project around so much, and I hope you guys can see that with the huge reduction in impervious, and honestly cutting almost one of the buildings in half. So that's my spiel, but I'll go to James.
Well, let me ask a question, because that's a question. So basically what we're talking about here is due to, the retention basins are of certain size, and they are, because of that size, there's going to be an increased amount of flow out of them under certain storm events.
Correct, at the higher storm events. And
Yeah.
when we say the amount of flow, we're talking about the volume, which is acre feet, not the rate. So the rate is what the state deems important because that's how quickly the water is getting to its final analysis point and the velocity. And we reduce our peak flow rates quite substantially. And I can pull up the table to show the board the difference. But the state isn't concerned with the volumes at the higher storm events because it doesn't give an added benefit to the final analysis point as much as the rate does. And when you're storing water at that volume, there's really no added treatment benefit because all your pollutants are captured in the first flush, which is your water quality volume. So at that point, you're just storing water for the sake of storing water. And on a project like this, where you abut a almost 50-acre size wetland, the amount of, or I guess the level that wetland could rise at the 50-year storm is 0.07 inches. So it's 7/100ths of an inch, which I wouldn't be able to visually tell you like what that even looks like. So I know that we are asking for a waiver for that, but given the state's rules, we meet those, and also given just the minuscule impact that's going to have on the wetland, it's really not going to make a difference to the overall site as a whole because of the significant reduction in rate, which is the big thing that the state focuses on.
So if the retention ponds were built to meet this requirement, what's the percentage difference in outflow?
You mean how much bigger they would be?
No, how,
In
no,
outflow, to reaching its final analysis point, does it change the rate of flow out?
I mean, how much water are we talking about? Difference between the two sizes, between what you have designed versus what's required?
So I guess the rate would be decreased more because now you're having more storage. So your rate pre to post would be further decreased. So
If it was bigger, yeah.
If it was bigger, correct.
So, okay, so,
But the state just says that you have to be less than the pre-flow. So if your existing flow is 50 cubic feet per second and we're at 49.9,
yeah.
we meet the intent of the rule. In this case, at the 50-year storm, we're about 10 cubic feet per second less, which is much more conservative or a much bigger reduction than what the state would require. Because you could be 1/100th less and the state's going to say, yep, you're good, but we're, you know,
So we're not talking about a huge difference.
no, it's
And
not.
we're not
user-friendly.
talking, and the impact on where this water is going is going to be rather small,
Correct.
as you described. Okay.
And the only way to really meet volume requirements of this magnitude is to infiltrate. Because infiltration essentially discards the runoff and it doesn't get to the final analysis point. And you essentially take that area and remove it from your analysis because it doesn't get there, it just infiltrates into the soils. And where we
Yeah.
have shallow seasonal water table, it's not practical to do infiltration.
Yeah,
And that's the only way that you
understood.
can,
Yeah,
meet
okay.
that requirement.
All right, thank you, that helps me.
And I think that final point there, because I'm sure for everybody, the math behind these gets a little bit difficult from a simplistic mind of my own. But I think the big thing is to meet that standard that Hudson sets is typically required in an infiltration basin. a point of a waiver is to allow leniency or a different alternative where that original one can't be met. On this site, we simply cannot meet that infiltration. The water table doesn't allow for it. Also, the benefit of the gravel wetland that we are proposing has alternative positives that come in giving that little bit of a waiver. So there's some trade-off there, I guess, that I think that's worthwhile to point out. The biggest one, I think, that we just simply can't infiltrate the way a normal detention basin would, so we're required to hold that, and volume and size all changes based on that, so.
Okay.
Other questions by board members? Mr. Enby,
Based on that, I'll make a waiver.
making a motion to waive that
Yep.
requirement?
I move to grant a waiver from section 290-5.A.5 post-development runoff volume to allow for a post-development volumetric increase in runoff based on the board's discussion, testimony of the applicant's representative in accordance with the language included in the submitted waiver request form for said waiver.
We have a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Hurd. Any discussion on the motion in front of us? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion is 5-1-0, and Mr. Crowley opposed.
Abstained or opposed?
Opposed. All right. So at this point, I guess our next option is for a motion to continue. Do we have a date?
First available is August 26th. Or September 9th.
I'm going to make the assumption that the applicant would like the August 26th meeting.
Unless if you got one next Tuesday. No, just-
Tuesday.
No, Wednesday. Mixing up meetings here, but,
We got a select board.
no, that would be our preferred one. The only thing that I would ask, and first I do want to say I really appreciate the board giving us that extra little bit of time to work through those waivers, because that is a significant direction that we're pointed in for this final revision. I would just hope that Mr. Crowley comments, please get them to us as soon as possible. I showed you, I'm going to turn around answers, so the quicker they come to me, the quicker everybody will have answers, so that way everybody has the adequate time that they feel need to study them, so.
So the deadline would be August 11th by noon for any new material for this.
So my only
So in
question,
fairness to the applicant, Mr. Crowley, you should give him at least 7 days before that deadline.
Yeah, well, August 25th is what we're talking about.
26th.
And August 11th is a cutoff for any, okay.
You should get
If
something to him
I
before
come up
that.
with additional comments, I will try to meet that date.
I would get
Obviously,
it. Sorry, I would get it to them prior to, because that's their deadline to
Right.
get
Answer it,
stuff
yeah.
to us.
okay,
That's
so they
their
gotta
deadline to
get
get it.
back to August 11th, so.
if you could
You gotta
finish
get
biting,
it- yeah.
if you could finish biting at that apple
No,
within the
I
next week,
will,
that'd be great.
August 4th.
August
At the
4th
There you
is
go.
when I should get it. No later than that.
By noon.
Pressure on.
By noon, yeah. Can we add by noon?
Yeah, by noon.
Okay, by high noon or?
So if you don't submit it by August 4th at high noon, then you
Then,
can't
next
complain when it's
meeting will
not.
be short.
Then you don't.
Be a victim of your own comments.
All right, does somebody wish to make that motion? And I believe we could do both motions. Instead of doing two separates, we could do non-residential site plan and conditional use permit into one motion. Say what's willing. It's a requirement, somebody actually
What's
has
the
to
date
make
again?
this.
I will make the motion.
August 26th.
I'll make
I
it.
never make a motion. I will make that motion.
I cannot just wave a magic hand to make this happen, folks. It is your decision and your game. All right. So motion by Selectman
August
Gasper.
26th.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vanderwee. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So, one other item we do have to resolve is we had made a decision a while back that the first meeting in August was going to get canceled. We have nothing on the agenda. So you need a motion to do that. Or we can all show up and say, well, there's nothing on the agenda. You didn't have enough time to resubmit.
No, that's perfectly fine. I just hope if you'd appease me for a minute, I just want to really say thank you for everybody for the discussion here tonight. It was very informative. I'm going to take everything and we'll go back. My position is to try to keep things rolling along, and you guys are to throw stuff at me and see how I handle it. And I do enjoy it. I hope you guys did, and thank you very much for the time. So just want to say that.
Have a good
Thank you.
So does anybody wish to make that motion?
Adjourn? Cancel the meeting, definitely.
I second it.
Mr. Hurd made the motion, seconded by Mr. Vanderveen. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries 6-0. This time the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. It's made by Mr. Crowley, seconded by Mr. Hurd. And all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 6-0, and we are out at 10:12.
What meeting did you?